The 13-year-old girl took off her glasses and looked straight into the woman's eyes. Unexpectedly, she could read everything the woman was thinking. She even knew that this woman was a scammer. It turned out that since birth she had possessed a special ability. She could read other people's thoughts just by looking into their eyes. The girl's name was Ine. She was the third generation of the Bok family. All members of the family possessed extraordinary powers. For example, Ine's grandmother could predict the future through sleep, and Ine's aunt Dong-hee had the ability to fly in the sky. Especially Ine's father was Guiju. He could travel back in time, but at present they could not use those powers because the grandmother suffered from severe insomnia, and Dong-hee could not fly because she was too fat. Guiju also could not return to the past because he was depressed after losing his wife 7 years ago. That day, the whole family went to a cliff on the sea to try his superpowers again, but the results were unsuccessful. Man-hoim had a huge headache because of the family situation now. If this continued, those powers would most likely disappear forever. Suddenly, Guiju fell into the sea. Luckily, a brave girl jumped in to save him. After both of them successfully got to shore, Guiju mistook the girl for his deceased ex-wife. He immediately hugged the girl and fainted. The whole family took him to the hospital for a checkup. Luckily, he was fine. A few days later, Mrs. S. Man-hoim went for a massage to treat her insomnia. Not only that, she also offered a prize of 1,000 won to anyone who could make her sleep. Even though she had insomnia, she refused to take sleeping pills because she was afraid of side effects and drug resistance. No one in the shop would accept because she was too difficult. Only one new employee named Da-hae accepted the challenge. Everyone was happy and agreed to let Da-hae do this task. Before starting the massage, Da-hae offered Mrs. Man-hoim a cup of herbal tea. She shared that this tea is very good for improving sleep. Mrs. Man-hoim trusted her and drank a cup of tea. Then Da-hae started the massage treatment. Mrs. Man-hoim felt a clear difference compared to the other staff here. Thanks to Da-hae's skillful hands and professional techniques, Mrs. Man-hoim gradually fell into a deep sleep. When she woke up, Mrs. Man-hoim felt extremely surprised and satisfied with Da-hae's service. She decided to give Da-hae 1,000 won as promised. When Mrs. Man-hoim looked closely at Da-hae's face, she suddenly realized that Da-hae was the one who saved her son a few days ago when Guiju fell into the sea. Mrs. Man-hoim was overjoyed and quickly gave Da-hae more money with deep gratitude, but Da-hae refused and said that she had not slept comfortably here. Seeing that, Mrs. Man-hoim had the idea of inviting Da-hae to her house to continue the massage treatment. Da-hae looked at the massage parlor owner. Mrs. Man-hoim understood and immediately gave the owner a tip. The massage parlor owner immediately agreed to let Da-hae have an additional massage service at home. Da-hae promised to come to her house tomorrow. Mrs. Man-hoim was extremely satisfied with Da-hae's skills. The next day, Da-hae went to Man-hoim's house. Da-hae was surprised by the luxury of the house. Man-hoim invited Da-hae to her garden to finish the massage. At the same time, Guiju's room was filled with empty wine bottles. Since he had been depressed, he had been drunk almost every day. Since he ran out of wine, he went to the kitchen to get another bottle. While he was opening the bottle, he saw Da-hae coming down to make herbal tea. She offered to help him, but he didn't care. When he walked past Da-hae, she intentionally spilled the wine bottle and looked worried about him. She helped him pick up the pieces. Just then, Mrs. Man-hoim walked in and saw this scene. She thought that Da-hae had saved her son twice, so she was very grateful. Guiju's attitude was still very cold, even though he knew that Da-hae was the one who saved him. This made Mrs. Man-hoim extremely ashamed of her son and pulled him out. Da-hae waited until she was alone in the kitchen and quickly mixed some medicine into the herbal tea. After making sure that the medicine had completely dissolved, she brought the tea to Mrs. Man-hoim. Then she started massaging Mrs. Man-hoim. Meanwhile, Da-hae told that her parents had passed away and that she had been married twice. Her first husband was an adulterer and her second husband was abusive. However, she still dreamed of a happy family. Mrs. Man-hoim felt sympathy and realized that her son shared the same pain as Da-hae. Mrs. Man-hoim said that Guiju got married early, but unfortunately his wife passed away. He still couldn't forget his wife and became depressed. When Da-hae left, Mrs. Man-hoim was very pleased and praised Da-hae to her husband. Before she could finish speaking, she fell asleep without realizing it. In her dream, she saw Da-hae wearing the Bok family heirloom ring. When she woke up, she told her husband about it, so she guessed that Da-hae was destined for Guiju. Perhaps thanks to Da-hae, Guiju was able to escape his depression and recover his superpowers. So Mrs. Man-hoim told her husband to immediately schedule an appointment for Da-hae to come to her house. On the other side, Da-hae went home to take a bath, which was her house. It turns out that her family is not dead. Her mother works as a back scrubber at a sauna. Although she is a scammer, Da-hae also has a weakness. She is afraid of fire. Cooking a pack of noodles is also a challenge for her. In the end, because she was so scared, she ate the noodles raw. Guiju's family owns a building worth 50 billion, in which Guiju owns a gym in that building. That day, a beautiful girl with a sexy body named Grace came to apply to be a trainer there. Guiju hired her without reading her application. When Grace was just exclaiming that it was so easy to apply for a job, Dong-hee, Guiju's older sister, stopped her and checked her application. After carefully examining it and realizing that Grace had a home fitness channel on YouTube and nearly 300,000 subscribers, Dong-hee immediately agreed. Then Guiju came down and gave his sister some money to buy a birthday present present for his daughter. Dong-hee was consulting a client about liposuction, but because of her overweight appearance, the client felt insecure. Her pants button accidentally hit the customer's face, causing the customer to angrily leave. The director of this private hospital, who is also Dong-hee's lover, saw that scene and felt helpless. He immediately told Dong-hee that she no longer needed counsel. She looked back at her poster at the clinic when she had not gained weight and felt sad. Then Dong-hee bought some cake to eat. Even though she had not paid yet, she had eaten a lot. But when she swiped her card, all the cards exceeded the limit. She had to use the money Guiju asked her to buy a gift for his daughter to pay. Suddenly, she received a call from her mother, informing her that Dahae would come to their house to attend in a birthday on Saturday. On Saturday, when Guiju saw his parents preparing food, he wondered why his daughter had never had a birthday party before. Why did she suddenly have one this time? At this time, Dong-hee appeared and said that she would come too. Guiju looked at his sister and realized that she had spent all the money he gave her. Meanwhile, his mother tried to match him with Dahae. Guiju felt tired and disappointed. Dahae arrived and was happily welcomed by Man-home and her husband. During mealtime, Man-home openly stated her intention to have Dahae marry Guiju. Guiju and his sister immediately threatened Dahae that their family was very scary. Guiju's daughter was at the age of being naughty, so she would definitely suffer if she married him. Guiju's mother pulled him into the house. Mr. Sungu called In-ae down to the party. At that time, only Dahae and Dong-hee were left. Dong-hee said that she was on a diet, but in fact she was craving lobster, so she asked Dahae to get her a glass of water. After Dahae left, Dong-hee began to eat comfortably. Mr. Sungu called his niece down to celebrate her birthday and eat delicious food. In-ae expressed that she only wanted to eat seaweed soup that he cooked. Of course, Mr. Sungu agreed to this simple request from his beloved niece. He went to the kitchen to cook seaweed soup and light candles on a cake for In-ae. At the same time, Guiju questioned his mother about why she invited another woman home on In-ae's birthday. She replied that she wanted him to forget his ex-wife and live happily again. She did not forget to scold Guiju for previously discouraging the two from falling in love because she did not see a future for them. But Guiju disobeyed her and insisted on getting married. This was heard by Dahae, who was getting water. Suddenly, In-ae came down from upstairs and witnessed the whole thing. She came down to blow out the candles on her cake and went upstairs. Seeing his daughter's attitude, Guiju angrily left. At this time, it suddenly started raining outside. Mr. Sungu and Mrs. Man-home ran out to bring in food. Suddenly, Mrs. Man-home felt dizzy and fainted. Mr. Sungu and Dong-hee rushed her to the hospital. Mr. Sungu asked Dahae to run in and turn off the gas stove for the seaweed soup he was cooking, but he didn't know that Dahae was most afraid of fire. Dahae looked at the gas stove that was burning fiercely. She found a pair of tongs and mustered up all her courage to approach it. Luckily, In-ae went downstairs and turned off the stove. Dahae only had time to thank him. Suddenly, In-ae asked Dahae what she wanted to put in the soup. Because In-ae had seen Dahae put medicine in Mrs. Man-home's tea, Dahae explained that it was licorice concentrate, but In-ae didn't listen and went upstairs. A while later, smelling the aroma of the seaweed soup, In-ae went downstairs again and saw that Dahae had prepared food for her. At first, the little girl refused to eat until Dahae ate first. Then In-ae felt at ease and realized that the food was delicious. Dahae also spoke well of Guiju, making In-ae feel more sympathetic towards her. Therefore, In-ae advised Dahae not to get involved with this family and revealed the secret that her family had superpowers. But now the family is suffering from modern diseases, so the superpowers have been lost. Dahae listened to everything. However, Dahae did not believe it and thought that In-ae had a rich imagination. On this side, Guiju went to buy a gift for In-ae and then visited his ex-wife's grave. There he met his ex-wife's parents there. His mother-in-law wondered why Guiju was also in an accident, but why he was not injured. Guiju could not explain. When he got home, Guiju found Dahae washing the dishes. Dahae shared that In-ae had just had dinner with her. Guiju was extremely surprised because as far as he knew, In-ae never ate dinner. Dahae also told her about the day she saved him at sea. She saw him step into the sea to save a little girl's stuffed rabbit, and he did everything. She praised him as a superhero for that action, and she said that in the past, someone sacrificed himself to save her, so she always cherished her own life to repay that person. Dahae's words moved Guiju, but he still tried to act cold. After asking Guiju to wash the dishes, Dahae said goodbye to him and left. Dahae returned to the sauna and was rewarded by her mother with a cup of rice water for her acting skills. Suddenly, Dahae's younger sister walked out. She was Grace. It turned out that Dahae's family lived on fraud. Before Dahae married her two ex-husbands, it was thanks to her and her family's perfect acting. Their whole family received a large sum of money from her two ex-husbands for mental damages as well as divorce benefits. What Dahae's family was aiming for was her ex-husband's property. This time the next victim is Guiju. Dahae tells the story of this family having special abilities. That's why the family got rich from stocks or lottery, and now their family has lost their special abilities due to the disease of the times. Dahae's family laughed at this. They thought it was absurd. The disease of the times was because Guiju's family was too happy and became sick. Guiju went into his daughter's room and wished her a happy birthday. He also gave In-ae a very cute stuffed rabbit. The little girl immediately put the stuffed rabbit her father gave her in the closet. There were countless stuffed rabbits in there. In-ae remembered the accident 7 years years ago. Guiju also gave her a stuffed rabbit. Then Guiju returned to the past. Only mother and daughter were left in the car. Suddenly, In-A's eyes changed color, and then the car crashed into a ravine. When Guiju returned to the present, it was too late. When Guiju was 9 years old, he had won a lottery and won the Carp King prize. He was extremely happy to receive the award. When he got home, Guiju saw his mother watching the stock market on the newspaper. He sneaked into the house, but his mother found out because he had gone out. When he showed it to his mother, she broke the prize and beat Guiju with a whip. Suddenly, Guiju returned to the moment when he won the Carp King prize. The whole world was gray and colorless. Only Guiju had full color. It was the first time he used his ability to go back to the past when he remembered a happy moment. A few days later, Guiju returned to that moment again, but he realized that he could only see, not touch, everything in the past. Suddenly, Guiju was shocked when he saw the scene of the little dog and its owner. The dog ran to the intersection and had an accident, lying motionless on the side of the road. The little girl's sobbing made him feel even more heartbroken. Guiju realized that a moment of happiness for him could also be a moment of unhappiness for others. He tried to go back to the past to save the dog but failed, no matter what he did. After returning many times, Guiju did not feel happy at that moment. Partly because of returning many times, the rest was the feeling of guilt in his mind. Since then, Guiju has not been able to return to that moment. Returning to the present, Guiju looked at the pile of teddy bears In-A threw out. It seemed that his daughter no longer liked them. However, the truth was that In-A thought that because of her birth, many bad things happened to her family, so she felt that she did not deserve to receive a birthday present. That is why she threw all the teddy bears away. Before In-A went to school, Guiju observed that someone was following In-A. He told her to be careful when going to school. Guiju went to the mall to buy another gift for his daughter. Dahye had followed him before and pretended to come there by chance. She offered to help him choose a gift, but Guiju refused. Dahye tried to hold his hand, but Guiju pushed it away. Unfortunately, he tore her sleeve. He shyly left to drink beer nearby. A moment later, Dahye appeared in front of Guiju with the shoes he had refused earlier. She begged On to bring the shoes back to In-A. Thinking of his daughter, Guiju reluctantly took the shoes and threw a wad of money on the table. He didn't want to owe Dahye, then he left without paying any attention to Dahye. While Dahye was drinking beer in the mall, the fire alarm suddenly rang. Everyone ran away. Dahye was extremely panicked. She couldn't move because she was so scared. She could only hold her head and sit down. Suddenly, a hand grabbed her hand. When Dahye raised her head, she found out that it was Guiju. She was extremely surprised because she thought he had already gone home. Suddenly, the security guard announced that the fire alarm just now was just a system error. Dahye turned her head towards the security guard, and when she turned back, Guiju had disappeared. She felt confused and did not understand why he suddenly appeared and helped her when she was panicking. At home, In-A received the shoes outside the door. The girl loved the gift. She smiled brightly and looked at herself in the mirror. Guiju saw his daughter happily receiving the shoes and felt happy inside. A few days later, Mrs. Manhome invited Dahye to her family's gym and said that if Dahye became her daughter-in-law, the whole building would belong to Dahye. Although Dahye really wanted to, she still restrained herself and replied that she was not someone who easily got married after going through 2 previous failed marriages. That tactfulness made Mrs. Manhome very pleased. Dong-hee was nearby and observed the whole thing. She pulled her mother aside and warned Dahye that she might be a scammer. Grace, who was nearby, overheard and signaled Dahye. Just then, Guiju arrived at the gym. Dahye approached him to thank him for helping her in the fire and even holding her hand to comfort her, but he didn't understand what she said. Mrs. Manhome was very happy to hear that because she thought their relationship had improved. When Dahye returned home, she wondered why Guiju didn't admit to holding her hand. It seemed like he had some secret. At school, In-A seemed to be an invisible girl. Few people paid attention to her. That made In-A feel lost and lonely. Currently, In-A hasn't joined any clubs, even though she really wants to integrate with her friends. However, her shyness and embarrassment prevent her from signing up for any activities. Because of that, the homeroom teacher called Guiju and told him to pay more attention to his daughter. The teacher also reminded Guiju to sign the information that the school sent to the parents. At this time, Guiju found the papers in her daughter's desk box and signed everything. After finishing signing, Guiju went downstairs to find some alcohol. Suddenly, Mr. Sungu appeared and invited him to go drink at the restaurant. There were his mother and Dahye. Guiju was about to leave when Mr. Sungu pushed him in. A moment later, Guiju's father and mother left to create conditions for Guiju and Dahye to be alone together. However, Guiju still acted cold towards Dahye and continued to drink alone. At the cosmetic clinic, Dong-hee discovered that it was past time and her lover had not returned. The staff said that he was examining a customer. Dong-hee had to wait outside. She heard laughter in the clinic. Unable to bear the laughter, Dong-hee immediately went to check. She caught sight of her lover and Grace happily chatting. The two explained that they were just seeing a doctor, leaving Dong-hee speechless. She felt disappointed and jealous. Dong-hee invited her lover out for a drink and took the opportunity to suggest that they register their marriage so they could soon have a 50 billion building. The reason was that Mrs. Manhome had made a deal with her 2 children that whoever got married first would inherit the 50 billion house. However, her lover refused, saying that they would only consider getting married when they paid off the rent he borrowed from her. Dong-hee knew he was making an excuse to refuse. She still couldn't resist thinking that the reason was her overweight body. Dong-hee was determined to change herself by going back to the gym. She worked hard to lose weight. She believed that only when her body became slimmer would he come back to love her passionately. In another development, In-ae was on her way home when she suddenly stopped. Someone was following her from behind. In ran as fast as she could to the nearest restroom and started calling each family member. But everyone was busy. Grandma was sleeping, Grandpa was busy cleaning, and Aunt Dong-hee was busy losing weight. In-ae had no choice but to call her father, but the person who answered the phone was Da-hae. Da-hae woke up Guiju to help In-ae, even though he was currently drunk. But when Da-hae mentioned his daughter's name, Guiju woke up and rushed out. When Guiju ran to the public restroom, he saw a very suspicious man outside. The man was Da-hae's family member. He was here to follow In-ae. Guiju suspected that he was the one who scared In-ae, so Guiju immediately rushed to fight the man. The man wanted to fight back, but Da-hae signaled him not to touch Guiju and to leave as soon as possible. Guiju, drunk, punched the man's helmet. The man pretended to be seriously injured and ran away. At this time, In-ae also came out of the bathroom. Guiju comforted his daughter that he had dealt with the stalker and told her not to worry. But In-ae did not understand what her father was saying. She whispered to Da-hae about her problem. It turned out that In-ae ran to the bathroom and called for help because it was her first time on her period, not because there was a stalker. Da-hae helped In-ae buy sanitary napkins and lent her a shirt to cover the blood stains on her skirt. After successfully taking In-ae home, Guiju asked Da-hae out for a drink to thank her. Da-hae recalled the moment when the two held hands at the mall, but Guiju still denied it. Da-hae guessed that maybe it was him in the future who held her hand, but Guiju insisted that it was not true, because even if he could go back to the past, he would not be able to touch anything from the past, and he was currently depressed, so he could not go back to the past. Dong-hee was still running with increasing intensity. She really wanted to return to her slim body like before. Suddenly, while running, Dong-hee flew up for a moment and fell off the treadmill. Grace saw this and immediately came out to support Dong-hee. When Guiju returned home, he remembered what Da-hae said when he held her hand. He tried to close his eyes, and sure enough, he had returned to the moment the fire alarm rang at the mall. The whole world was gray, only Guiju had full color, and he was able to touch her. It turns out that Da-hae wasn't lying, he really held her hand. Guiju returned to the present. His ability had returned. Not only that, he could also touch other people, so he tried to go back to the happy moments with his ex-wife, and wished he could touch her. Sure enough, he was able to go back, but it was the beach scene when Da-hae saved him. He tried again, this time going back to the moment Guiju was with In-ae and Da-hae in the public restroom. Every time he went back to the past, Da-hae was there. He was so surprised by this new discovery. Immediately after that, Guiju went to her workplace to clearly question why Da-hae appeared in his mind during his happy moments. But the way he asked was like he was confessing his feelings. Mrs. Manholm saw this scene and immediately told Guiju that Da-hae would be the important person to help the whole family regain their lost ability. After that, she suggested that Da-hae quit her job at the spa and move in with them. On the surface, she asked Da-hae to tutor and take care of In-ae, but in reality, the purpose was to get Da-hae and Guiju married. Then he saw her waiting at the fountain. Memories of his daughter's birthday flooded back. It turned out that the moment In-ae was born, Guiju's entire fire department had to deal with a fire at the high school. His captain passed away in that fire. Seeing the captain's wife and children crying at the funeral made Guiju heartbroken, because that day, the captain took the initiative to take over Guiju's shift so that he could go to the hospital with his daughter. Guiju's happiest moment was also the moment when others were most miserable. During the captain's funeral, Guiju suddenly flashed back to the moment his daughter was born. Not far away was that fire. Suddenly, Guiju saw the yellow hospital door standing out in the gray scene. He reached out to touch it and succeeded. That was the first time he could touch something in the past. Without thinking much, Guiju immediately ran to that high school fire. He saw with his own eyes the captain running into the fire. Then the building collapsed, and the captain lost his life. No matter how many times Guiju tried to return to the past, he could not save the captain at that moment. Because of that, he was haunted and could not concentrate on his mission. In the end, his boss told him to go for psychological treatment. From then on, Guiju quit his job as a firefighter. After that time, Guiju sometimes unconsciously returned to the moment his daughter was born, but he could only helplessly watch everyone in the fire, which also caused a lot of trouble for his family, because sometimes he suddenly disappeared and suddenly appeared. On the day of the accident, Guiju's ex-wife threatened that if he disappeared today, she would take In-ae away from here. Before he could understand what she said, he had already returned to the past. But this time, Guiju did not go to save anyone, but decided to return to the present with his wife, but it was too late. His wife drove the car down the cliff and passed away, while In-ae was lucky to keep her life. Returning to the present, Guiju sadly went home, leaving Da-hae waiting for him at the fountain, because he thought he would cause trouble for others. At night, Da-hae's family gathered. Da-hae's mother, Lee-hong, thought that the Bok family was not normal when they thought they had superpowers, so she wanted Da-hae to collect a lot of evidence to fight them in court. The next day, Guiju was surprised to see Da-hae move into his house. She said that that yesterday he went to the fountain and gave her this bouquet of flowers. Manhuim and her husband were there and were very happy to hear the news, but Guiju kept denying it and pulled Dahae out to ask about her lie. But Dahae insisted that not only did he give her flowers, he also hugged her there. Guiju thought that maybe it was his future self who did it, so he let it go. Dahae went in to eat with everyone. Time went back many years ago. On the catwalk, a girl was confidently walking. Everyone was staring at her. That was Donghee's past. She used to be very slim and had a sexy body. After the performance, she jumped from the rooftop and flew. While enjoying the happiness, her body suddenly started to gain weight. Donghee couldn't control her body and fell to the ground. It turned out that it was just a dream. The noise outside the door woke her up. At the same time, Donghee also received bad news that the apartment she was living in was about to be sold. Donghee immediately returned to her mother's house. At that time, Mrs. Man-hom was getting a massage from Dahae. Dahae understood and left so that the mother and daughter could talk. Donghee discovered that her family's finances were currently in dire straits due to her mother's wrong investments. Dahae recorded everything outside and then went out to report to her family. When it was time for dinner, Dahae realized that the family refused to eat together. Ina cooked spicy noodles for herself, and when she took off her glasses, Dahae took her glasses. She tried to ask for her glasses back. Dahae told Ine to close her eyes and fixed her eyebrows. That made her prettier. Suddenly, their eyes met. Ine's eyes turned blue, and she could read Dahae's thoughts. It turned out that Ine's superpower was to read other people's thoughts if they looked at each other. She had hidden her ability from everyone, which was why Ine always wore glasses. She realized that Dahae was plotting to take over the building. The next day in class, Ine's glasses were snatched off by a classmate. Because of her severe nearsightedness, Ine couldn't see clearly. Suddenly, Ine's boyfriend picked up her glasses and returned them to her. At that moment, their eyes met. Ine's boyfriend complimented her on her beauty when he saw Ine's bare face. At the gym, Donghee called her boyfriend. She asked him to have dinner with her tonight, but he found a reason to reject her. Donghee immediately called her close friends to ask them to go out to dinner tonight. Grace heard about it. At night, when Donghee was about to leave with her close friends, she saw her boyfriend walking with Grace into the hotel. Donghee immediately ran upstairs to check and saw the two of them kissing passionately in front of the room. At that time, Donghee was shocked, but she just left without doing anything. In fact, Grace intentionally let Donghee see that scene because she wanted Donghee to break up with that bastard boyfriend. The next morning, when her boyfriend came home, Donghee took the initiative to suggest that the two of them stop seeing each other for a while. He said he was worried about Donghee, but he was happy to be free from her. That night, Dahae was cooking soup, but accidentally let the fire catch on the paper next to the gas stove. She panicked and didn't know what to do until Guiju came to help her put out the fire. He realized she was afraid of fire. When Guiju took out the trash, he saw a flower shop outside. There was a bouquet of flowers that looked very similar to the one he gave Dahae. When Guiju picked it up, the owner said that the bouquet was only for sale today because it was almost out of season. Suddenly, he went back to the past with his hands holding that bouquet. The scene was still monochrome. Only Dahae was full of color. Guiju walked in front of her and was about to reject her. Suddenly, a car passed by, causing Guiju to pull Dahae into his arms to avoid the car. That made Dahae misunderstand that he had hugged her. Then she saw the bouquet of flowers Guiju was holding. Dahae thought Guiju brought her flowers, so she happily accepted the flowers, much to Guiju's surprise. At the same time, Mr. Soon-gu was dancing in the dance hall. This scene was captured by Dahae's accomplices. Meanwhile, Dahae was making tea and putting medicine in it like usual. Suddenly, Donghee returned and announced that she would be living here from now on and wanted to drink the tea Dahae was making. Dahae was startled and stopped Donghee from drinking. Donghee realized Jahee's unusual behavior and immediately asked Dahae if she had mixed anything into the tea. Dahae immediately drank the whole cup of tea and said that she wanted to make Donghee a cup of hot tea, so she stopped Donghee. Then Dahae washed the dishes and fell asleep under Donghee's supervision. Dahae told herself not to sleep. Suddenly, she saw Donghee go into the secret room to rummage through valuables. Dahae secretly followed, even though she was very sleepy, and recorded the scene, with the purpose of disqualifying Donghee as guardian. Suddenly, Dahae saw Donghee floating off the floor while trying to get something from above. Dahae couldn't believe her eyes. She looked again, and it was still the same scene. Dahae was so scared that she quickly ran outside, but accidentally made a noise that made Donghee turn back. Dahae ran to the stairs to go to her room and accidentally bumped into Guiju and was caught by him. But before she could calm down, her expression changed again because the mirror did not reflect Guiju's image. She quickly left his arms, screamed loudly, and ran downstairs. Back in the past, after accidentally giving flowers to Dahae, Guiju suddenly returned to the present. The flower cart had gone quite a distance. He remembered the time he held Dahae's hand in the past, but it wasn't because he had feelings for her, but because he was moved that this time he had saved someone with his ability. Guiju told Mr. Soon-gu. The two were surprised that Guiju's ability had developed. Mr. Soon-gu then led him to the Bok family's study. There were many books that had been kept for many generations. Mr. Soon-gu said that in the past, ancestors had also revealed their powers. For example, there was someone who had the ability to breathe fire, but only when they went went to war. When an ancestor held his friend's hand in a dangerous situation, his power was revealed. Or a girl who had the ability to transform into another person against her will when standing in front of the person she loved. Gradually, she forgot how to return to her original form. Even if that girl transformed into many other girls, she still couldn't have the love of the person she loved, because he already had someone he liked. He drew that person, and surprisingly, it was the original appearance of the girl who could transform. After knowing the truth, the girl had both love and her original form. So Mr. Sungu concluded that Dahye was the key to Guiju's power. But Guiju wanted him to keep this a secret, and the two of them continued to monitor. Then Guiju went into the house and saw Dahye running to the second floor in fear. She muttered that there was a ghost. He curiously walked in the door and saw Dahye walking down to the first floor in fear. Dahye had just met Guiju on the second floor, and now she met him on the first floor, making her speechless. Because she was so scared, plus she had taken sleeping pills earlier, Dahye fainted right there. Just then, Mrs. Manhum and her husband also came in. The whole family was surprised and didn't understand what Dahye saw. Donghae stepped forward and said that because she had flown a little, Dahye might have seen it and was scared. Donghee did not forget to question why Dahye entered the secret room of her house. Mrs. Manhum guessed that Dahye was just passing by. The whole family took Dahye to her room and were extremely worried because she did not wake up, but Donghee came and said that Dahye was just sleeping. The reason was that Dahye put medicine in Mrs. Manhum's tea and she drank the tea, but Mrs. Manhum did not believe it and thought that Donghee was lying in order to take over the 50 billion building. That night, Mrs. Manhum slept and dreamed that Dahye was taken to the hospital from a public bath. She woke up and guessed that it was a bad dream. The next morning, Dahye woke up and remembered everything that happened yesterday. She was extremely panicked and wondered what she saw yesterday. Then Dahye changed her clothes and sneaked out of the room. Suddenly, Donghee stepped forward, scaring Dahye and causing her to back away. Dahye still clearly remembered how Donghee flew to the hallway yesterday. Suddenly, Donghee told Dahye to take a closer look at her toenails. Dahye was afraid that Donghee would fly away again, but when she looked down, she saw nothing but her newly done nails. It turned out that Donghee was talking about her toenails, and they both burst out laughing. Then Dahye went downstairs to cook breakfast, fried eggs, for Inay. Suddenly, Mrs. Manhum came downstairs and told Dahye about her dream, about seeing Dahye being taken out on a stretcher from the sauna. Hearing that, Dahye was extremely scared because that was her house. She accidentally ruined the fried eggs. Seeing that, Inay also stopped eating breakfast. Dahye chased after her and gave Inay a banana. Inay continued to tell Dahye to escape from this place immediately. Hearing that, Dahye immediately packed her things and sneaked out of the house. Guiju saw all of this. He followed her to the sauna and entered it. Dahye entered the house and told her mother that the Guiju family had supernatural powers. She convinced her mother to let this scam go, but Mrs. Li Hong thought the Guiju family was paranoid. Her mother forced Dahye to quickly register her marriage with Guiju and then register as guardian. Mrs. Li Hong did not forget to remind Dahye of the debt her owed. It turned out that she was not Mrs. Li Hong's biological daughter. Many years ago, Dahye's father died from drinking. During the funeral, Mrs. Li Hong and her husband came and demanded the money Dahye's father owed her. She forced Dahye to sign an insurance policy that if Dahye died, she would get the money. Currently, Mrs. Li Hong is Dahye's adoptive mother. Back in the present, Mrs. Li Hong forced her to carry out the scam plan that the family had originally set out. When Guiju went into the sauna, he was seen by Dahye's uncle, Hyung Tae. Hyung Tae tried to call Dahye to inform her, but her phone was in the cabinet. Hyung Tae watched Guiju while making rice rolls. Guiju was looking for Dahye. After failing to call Dahye, Hyung Tae called Mrs. Li Hong, but she didn't have her phone with her either. Dahye and Mrs. Li Hong were talking when Guiju found them. He was very surprised because Dahye called Mrs. Li Hong mom. He remembered that Dahye had said that she had no family. Mrs. Li Hong stood up and signaled to Hyung Tae outside. He understood and turned on the fire alarm. Dahye was very scared when she heard the fire alarm. She sat on the ground and couldn't move. Guiju saw that and carried her outside. Suddenly, both of them fell down because the floor was slippery. Mrs. Li Hong told Hyung Tae to call an ambulance to take Dahye to the hospital. In the hospital, she told Guiju about Dahye's story. It turned out that she was her adoptive mother. A few years ago, Dahye's high school had a fire. She adopted Dahye because she had no relatives. Since Li Hong was not Dahye's official relative, so Li Hong wanted Guiju to sign a document confirming Guiju as her guardian. Suddenly, Manhum called. Guiju answered the phone and confirmed that Dahye was in the hospital. At that moment, Li Hong approached her bedside and told her to wake up. It turned out that Dahye had pretended to faint. She worriedly told Li Hong that Guiju's family really had superpowers. But Li Hong didn't care and told Dahye to bring the marriage certificate back. Guiju reported Dahye's condition to Manhum. He then returned and saw that Dahye had woken up. Dahye said that my mother had gone home because she had to watch the sauna. Guiju paid the hospital bill and took Dahye home. In the car, he admitted to her about his superpowers. The whole thing where he appeared before her and disappeared was Guiju of the future. It wasn't that he forgot. It was just that things in the past, even though they happened to her, didn't happen to him. That's all. At the same time, in the past, he could only touch her. When they returned home, Mrs. Manhum learned that her son had told Dahye about the family's ability. Hee. She worriedly scolded her son for fear that Da Hee would be scared and run away. In the past, when his ex-wife had just died, Guiju had tried to go back to the moment when he was with his ex-wife to save her. But his mother stopped him and said that he couldn't change that because she had dreamed of her father's death before. She tried everything to stop it but couldn't because that future was something that was bound to happen. She scolded her son not to try to change the future. In the past, the ancestors of the Bok family were burned to death for saving others. She advised Guiju to look at reality. Back in the present, Guiju believes that he can save Da Hee, so he reveals his ability to her. When Da Hee returns to her room, she writes down Guiju's family and the abilities they once possessed. At the dance club, In-ae sits quietly in a corner. She listens to the music and watches her friends practice. Suddenly, In-ae's boyfriend appears and snatches her headphones and compliments the song she is listening to. From afar, Hyerim sees In-ae and boyfriend. Her smile disappears, replaced by an expression of dissatisfaction. After club activities, the group goes out to eat tteokbokki. In-ae quietly walks in the opposite direction. She enters a convenience store to buy super spicy noodles. Hyerim also follows In-ae and eats noodles with her. While the two of them are eating together, Hyerim asks In-ae how she feels about her boyfriend. At that moment, In-ae's glasses are taken off by Hyerim. In-ae immediately reads Hyerim's thoughts. It turns out that Hyerim also likes In-ae's boyfriend. Hyerim doesn't want In-ae to have feelings for her current boyfriend. In-ae has to lie that her boyfriend is extremely annoying. In-ae's lie is accidentally heard by her boyfriend. In-ae regrets what she said. She thinks that she shouldn't read other people's minds. Hyerim looks at In-ae and smiles smugly. Although Dong-hee is very determined to lose weight during the day, at night she brings a lot of food to her room. Suddenly she sees her mother sneaking around in front of Da Hee's room. Mrs. Manhome is extremely worried and afraid that Da Hee will leave because their family's secret has been revealed. Dong-hee knocks on the door to ask, but Da Hee comes out and tells her need to be quiet. Then she goes into the room, remembering Guiju's words. Da Hee thinks of a way and prints out the marriage certificate. Guiju remembers Da Hee's accident in the sauna. He goes back to the past with the hope of saving her from the accident. When he saw Da Hee, he followed and accidentally walked into the women's changing room. Because he was too panicked, he returned to the present. Feeling shocked by the scene, Guiju went to the bathroom to flush the toilet to help himself regain consciousness. Then he continued to return to the past. But Guiju returned to the moment when Da Hee panicked and stepped out of the secret room. When she stepped up and almost fell, luckily Guiju caught her in time. Then Da Hee thought he was a ghost. She pushed him away and ran downstairs. Guiju understood why Da Hee was so scared that day. Guiju returned to the present. He came out of the bathroom and Da Hee also came. She gave him the marriage certificate and said that Guiju of the future gave her this and said that the two of them needed to register their marriage as soon as possible. Realizing that Guiju was suspicious, Da Hee immediately told him about her past. On the day the high school burned down, someone came to save her. That person was Guiju. That's why she wanted to marry him. However, Guiju replied that it was the wrong order. If they really had feelings for each other, they would get married. Then he went up and kissed Da Hee. The two kissed passionately. Suddenly Da Hee stopped because she felt someone watching her behind the door. Then she returned to her room. Suddenly she saw something outside the window. When she opened the curtains, she discovered Dong-hee flying outside. Da Hee immediately backed away because she was so scared. She remembered that this whole family had superpowers. She started to lose confidence when facing them. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Mrs. Manhome came over and said that she was having trouble sleeping right now. She wanted to ask Da Hee for help. The two of them went down to the kitchen. Mrs. Manhome told a story while Da Hee made tea. She said that in her recent dream, she only dreamed of Da Hee. That made Da Hee startled and scared. Then she walked over and held Da Hee's hand and excitedly said that she dreamed of Da Hee holding her family's heirloom ring in her hand. This made Da Hee tremble with fear. Mrs. Manhome did not know that Da Hee was hiding sleeping pills in her hand. Just a little more, and everything would be exposed. Guiju did not believe what Da Hee said. He wondered if what she said was true. Then he went to sleep on the couch. But every time he closed his eyes, he would go back to the past when the two of them kissed, causing him to wake up in panic. After that, he tried everything, but every time he lay down, he would go back to that moment, making him extremely angry. The next morning, Guiju saw Da Hee vacuuming the house. He saw her slowly walking into the family's secret room. Actually, she was planning to search for his family's safe to steal the family's precious ring. Suddenly, Guiju called out, startling Da Hee. He called her out and said that he didn't like their love developing so quickly. He also said that the future she told him might be fake, and he asked her to tell him about how he saved her at school 13 years ago. Da Hee avoided telling that story and said that anyway, the two of them kissed and would get married soon, so it was no problem. Guiju said that he did it just to test if he had feelings for her, and he concluded that he didn't have feelings for her. Guiju was slapped by Da Hee as soon as she finished speaking. She then angrily turned and left. In the secret room in the house, Mrs. Manhome was shocked to find that her precious watch had disappeared. She hurriedly asked Dong-hee, but she firmly denied it. However, Mrs. Manhome noticed something unusual in Dong-hee's actions, so she rushed over to check. It turned out that Dong-hee was just hiding snacks. The mother and daughter turned their suspicions to Da Hee. They sneaked into Guiju's room and caught Da Hee trying to hide something behind her back. Dong-hee aggressively aggressively went to check. Guiju and Mr. Sungu also curiously ran into the room to see what was going on. When Dong-hee snatched what Da-hye was holding from her hand, the whole family was surprised to see that it was a marriage certificate. Guiju's parents were extremely happy and told him to quickly go to the district office to register their marriage. Dong-hye was extremely shocked and couldn't believe this fact. Guiju calmly explained that a small ceremony needed to be held before they officially became a family. At this point, Da-hye was forced to reveal her secret. She was an adopted child, adopted by the owner of a sauna. Hearing this, Mrs. Manhome had a bad feeling and asked her husband to investigate the background of Da-hye's adoptive mother. At In-ae's school, the girl gave Hai-rim her grandma's watch. It turned out that In-ae was the culprit who stole the watch. Hai-rim happily accepted the watch and hugged In-ae tightly. When it was time to leave, Hai-rim saw In-ae's shoes and asked to try them on. In-ae accidentally read her mind and knew that she liked the shoes. In-ae immediately lent Hai-rim the shoes. Hai-rim held In-ae's hand and said that they were really good friends. That made In-ae extremely happy. It had been a long time since she had a close friend like Hai-rim. In front of the sauna, Mr. Sungu was there watching and called the detective to investigate Mrs. Lee Hong's house. Unfortunately, Hyun-tae discovered his actions. After arriving at the detective's place, the detective recognized Miss Lee Hong and informed he that she had a history of fraud. She was a loan shark and had never had a debtor who did not pay her. Mr. Sungu was very surprised by this information. He immediately called his wife. But when Mrs. Manhum answered the phone, Mrs. Lee Hong was also at the Bok family's house talking. Mrs. Lee Hong said that Da-hye had to quit her job at the massage parlor and come here to live without pay as a maid. That was not what she wanted for her daughter, who had been married twice. Mrs. Lee Hong wanted Mrs. Manhum to quickly give Da-hye a status in the Bok family. When Mrs. Manhum asked about her glorious past, Mrs. Lee Hong admitted that she used to be a scammer, but she didn't do it anymore. She took on the job of scrubbing customers' backs to make up for what she had done. After escorting Mrs. Lee Hong out the door, Da-hye asked why she came so suddenly. She said that this family was looking for information about them, so she had to come to stop them in advance. It was also to speed up the marriage process for Da-hye. When In-ae returned home, Da-hye realized that she was wearing a different pair of shoes than the one she had this morning. Da-hye realized that In-ae might be being bullied. Da-hye remembered her school days when she was bullied by her friends who poured milk on her shoes. That day, she had to go home barefoot, so Da-hye really wanted to help In-ae. Da-hye went upstairs to ask In-ae about school. In In-ae's room, Hai-rim had just invited her to the group chat. The group went to the park on the weekend. In-ae had a happy smile on her face. Suddenly, Da-hye walked over and continued to ask her about school. In-ae accidentally looked into Da-hye's eyes. Da-hye thought she was being bullied, so In-ae quickly said that she wasn't being bullied. This made Da-hye suspect that she could read other people's minds. Da-hye tried to think that there was a very big spider behind In-ae, but at that time, In-ae was wearing glasses, so she only found Da-hye's actions a bit strange. On the other side, Grace was being bothered by a student in the gym. She contemptuously refused him and was immediately beaten by him. Luckily, Dong-hee came to Grace's rescue in time. To thank Dong-hee, Grace invited her to eat barbecue. Dong-hee said she didn't eat, but she still went. She even ate a lot. The two confided in each other. Dong-hee said that everyone judges others by their appearance. For example, the girl who lives with her was the one who stole the watch. But Dong-hee's mother suspected her. Obviously, the girl living with her was Da-hye. Hearing that, Grace accidentally said that there was no need to steal that cheap watch because when they got married, they would take over the 50 billion won house. Dong-hee asked Grace how she knew the value of that house with a suspicious look. Grace lied and said that everyone knew the market price of that house. But this statement didn't fool Dong-hee. After Dong-hee returned home, Mrs. Manhome called Dong-hee and her husband into the kitchen and announced the important news that Da-hae's adoptive mother had a criminal record. Because of that, she thought about it all afternoon. Mr. Sungu wanted to help Da-hae, so he said that she had nothing to do with her adoptive mother. But Dong-hee thought differently. She had more reason to confirm that Da-hae was a fraud and told her mother to quickly kick Da-hae out of the house. Mrs. Manhum wondered what the dream the day before of Da-hae wearing her family heirloom ring meant. Dong-hee said that it was possible that Da-hae stole their family ring and said that the dream was a warning to her. At the same time, Guiju and Da-hae were in the living room. Guiju continued to ask Da-hae how he saved her 13 years ago. He still didn't believe what she said. He himself always wanted to use his ability to save people, and he kept returning to that moment for a long time without saving anyone, so her answer was very important. Seeing her avoiding the question, Guiju went back to the past when she slapped him that afternoon. At that time, she also avoided his question. After the two went in different directions, he noticed that her shoelaces were untied. Looking at her pained expression, Guiju guessed that she probably didn't want to mention what happened 13 years ago because it brought up unpleasant memories. Guiju realized that he was wrong to keep asking Da-hae. He walked over to her and helped her tie her shoelaces. He then returned to the present and apologized to Da-hae for making her remember the terrible things. The next day, Mr. Sungu came to Guiju's room to convince him to open up to Da-hae. Guiju was afraid that he would mess up again this time, but Mr. Sungu said that he would definitely mess up, but he could go back in time and fix it because Da-hae was very special. Before Mr. Sungu could finish finished speaking, Guiju returned to the past when the two kissed. He wondered if he should love again. Then he went out and saw In-A go into the secret room to steal a watch. It turned out that she was the culprit. Guiju muttered that if In-A liked it, he could buy it for her. Why would he do that? Hearing his daughter whisper that you would like it, he guessed that she was being bullied at school. Guiju immediately went to school to find the homeroom teacher to talk. At the same time, Dahye also went to In-A's school to bring her shoes. But when Dahye asked the students at school about In-A, Dahye realized that very few students knew her. Some female students even thought that In-A was Hiram's servant. A while later, Dahye met In-A walking with Hiram from the schoolyard. Dahye realized that Hiram was wearing the watch that In-A stole and In-A's shoes. Dahye asked In-A to go somewhere else to talk. Dahye said that In-A's strange behavior lately was because of her friend Hiram, right? Dahye said that if In-A didn't tell the truth, Dahye would report this to In-A's family. In-A threatened that if Dahye did that, In-A would denounce Dahye as a scammer to everyone. Dahye was surprised by that statement. In-A said that I kept this a secret because I wanted my grandmother to suffer some consequences for her habit of relying on her superpowers. Moreover, this was the first time In-A had seen a scammer in real life, so she found it interesting. Then, to increase the persuasiveness, In-A took off glasses and looked straight into Dahye's eyes and said that her 2 previous marriages were also scams. The first time was to take revenge on Dahye's mother, who abandoned her children to follow another man. The second time was to take revenge on her alcoholic father. But the third time, Dahye did not continue like that because she was controlled by her emotions. Dahye went from surprise to panic. In-A saw all of Dahye's thoughts. Dahye also knew that In-A had hidden her ability all along. Dahye tremblingly called Hun-tae and said that everything had been exposed. This family of superpowers was real, and they absolutely could not deceive this family. When Dahye was convincing Hun-tae to believe her, she suddenly saw Guiju at school. Dahye panicked and ran in another direction. She accidentally ran into the school gym's warehouse. Very quickly, someone locked the warehouse because they thought there was no one inside, so she was locked inside. Dahye called Hun-tae to ask her uncle to pick her up. Suddenly, the phone ran out of battery. Dahye used all her strength to call for help and find a way out, but failed. She also fell to the floor when trying to climb up the window. This scene was exactly like 13 years ago, when she was also locked in the school warehouse by her friends. They said that if at least one person in the school noticed Dahye missing, they would release her. But that day, no one noticed Dahye's absence in class, not even the teacher. Suddenly, a fire broke out in the school, and everyone ran out in panic. Dahye was locked inside. Hearing the noise and smoke, she was scared and called for help and tried to find a way out. In the end, she fell down and intended to give up. Back in the present, Guiju opened the gym's warehouse door and saved her. Dahye cried and recounted her accident 13 years ago. At that time, she was locked in the 5th floor warehouse when the incident happened. Guiju recalled the moment he returned to the past. A group of female students begged their senior to run into the 5th floor warehouse to save someone, and it turned out that person was Dahye. Guiju seemed to realize something. He affirmed that he would save her. Hearing that, Dahye immediately recalled the past. Although she couldn't remember the face of the person who saved her, she knew that the man had a wound on his neck. But now Guiju didn't have that wound. She thought that Guiju wasn't the one who saved her. After helping Dahye out of there, Guiju received a phone call from In-A's homeroom teacher. Dahye took the opportunity to rush home and told Hyung-tae the truth about Guiju's family with superpowers. Of course, he didn't believe her. He even thought that she had feelings for Guiju, so she made an excuse not to participate in this scam. While the two were talking, Mrs. Lee Hong walked in and asked about the progress. Dahye said that after Mrs. Lee Hong appeared in their family, their attitude towards her had completely changed. Dahye suggested that they should have a plan to withdraw from that family. Guiju met the teacher to ask why In-A took the watch. The teacher explained that the watch was a birthday gift from In-A to Hiram. The two girls were close friends. Moreover, Hiram treated In-A very well. Hiram even invited In-A to join the dance club. That information made Guiju feel extremely surprised. He realized that he didn't know anything about girls before. After that, In-A was taken home by Guiju. In the car, Guiju kept asking about what happened at school, but In-A didn't care to answer because she was busy replying to messages with Hiram. Hiram texted In-A, asking if she thought she was bullying In-A, because the homeroom teacher called In-A in and asked. In-A quickly apologized to Hiram and affirmed that she always considered Hiram a close friend. Guiju tried to talk to his daughter, but In-A was angry at him for going to her school and talking to the homeroom teacher. Dahye suggested that she wanted to talk to Guiju, so Guiju went home to look for Dahye. Couldn't find her at home, so he went to the sauna and asked for her whereabouts. Hun-tae showed Guiju where Dahye was. Thanks to that, he successfully found her. Guiju then asked Dahye to find out why In-A stole Mrs. Manhome's watch. Dahye refused to help him and suggested that they should not see each other again. She gave the excuse that she was scared when she saw the superpowered family showing off their powers, so she left. Dahye also insisted that he wasn't the one who saved her. She also asked him to move her belongings back home, but Guiju still believed that he was the one who saved her. So after that, he worked out hard, quit drinking, and cooked breakfast for In-A. The family was surprised by his change. Guiju then secretly followed Dahye Dahae to the sauna. Because of Guiju's persistence, Dahae agreed to meet Ine at his request. The two met at a coffee shop. As soon as they met, Ine asked Dahae if you had told my father about me stealing Mrs. Manhome's watch. Seeing Dahae staying silent and not answering, Ine asked. Dahae said that she thought Ine could read minds, so she didn't say anything. Ine said that she needed to look into the other person's eyes to read minds. Seeing Dahae deny telling her father about the watch, Ine took off her glasses and looked straight into Dahae's eyes to check. After confirming that Dahae had not told her father about the watch, Ine was relieved. Ine asked Dahae to come back to her house and promised not to reveal that Dahae was a scammer to anyone. Regarding Hi-Rim, Ine said that she did it voluntarily and hoped that the family wouldn't worry. Dahae met Guiju again outside the car and told him not to worry because Ine had been lonely for a long time. And this is the first time she has a friend, so she wants to indulge her friend a little. However, Guiju still has to keep an eye on Ine because Ine might steal other things, so instead of saving her, he should save his daughter first. Guiju admits that he doesn't know how to be a good father. He promises to save Dahae and Ine. In the following days, Guiju still actively wakes up early to exercise in the morning. Mr. Sunwoo is very happy because his son's depression has improved. He comes to tell Mrs. Manhome the good news, but now she is extremely depressed because her insomnia has become serious again. The reason is that since the day she found out that Dahae's adoptive mother is a scammer, plus Donghee's confirmation that Dahae is a scammer, she has been sleepless for the past few days. Mrs. Manhome came up with an idea. She told Donghee to go find out about that sauna. Donghee obeyed her mother. She pretended to be a customer and followed Mrs. Lee Hong. Suddenly, Donghee saw Grace appear and talk intimately with Mrs. Lee Hong. Donghee was surprised that they were mother and daughter. Seeing this, Donghee was about to go up and expose it, but was stopped by Mrs. Lee Hong and offered to scrub her back. Meanwhile, Grace quickly ran away. When she got home, Donghee told her family what she saw, and she concluded that they were part of a group of scammers. Donghee also saw Grace enter the hotel with her boyfriend. They must have done that to plot to marry Guiju, get the 50 billion building. This time, Mrs. Manhome began to suspect, but Guiju affirmed that Dahae could be his future wife. After saying that, he returned to the past under everyone's surprised eyes. Mr. Sungu explains that Guiju's ability has been restored since he met Dahae. Not only that, he can also touch Dahae when he returns to the past. Mrs. Manhome and her daughter are surprised by this information. Elsewhere, Ine goes to an amusement park with a group of friends from a dance club. Hi-Rim is trying to take a photo with Ine's boyfriend, but the boyfriend sees Ine standing alone, so he proactively invites Ine to take a photo with Hi-Rim. Ine looks at the happy family with sadness. Suddenly, her boyfriend walks up and gives Ine cotton candy. Hi-Rim asks Ine to take Ine's boyfriend to the merry-go-round. Hi-Rim whispers to Ine that she will confess to Ine's boyfriend here. When Ine brings her boyfriend, she waits for Hi-Rim to return, but doesn't see him. Suddenly, Ine's boyfriend confesses to her, which makes Ine very embarrassed. The girl didn't want to lose her friendship with Hi-Rim. From afar, Hi-Rim saw everything. Hi-Rim looked at Ine with hatred. Guiju continued to follow Dahae to the sauna and asked her to teach him how to cook seaweed soup. Dahae tried to chase Guiju away, but failed. Not only that, Mrs. Lee Hong also entered and asked Dahae to teach Guiju how to cook soup. At the same time, Mr. Sungu and his wife also arrived. Mrs. Manhome saw Gui peeling garlic and was so startled that she almost fainted. She was then led into the sauna. When she looked at the dirty sauna, she wanted to leave, but in the end she still agreed to sleep there under Mrs. Lee Hong's massage. While waiting for Mrs. Manhome to wake up, Mr. Sungu and Guiju ate at the sauna. While eating, Dahae was always worried. She was afraid that Mrs. Manhome would dream something. Sure enough, not long after, Mrs. Manhome woke up in a panic and went straight home. She left everyone in a confused state of mind. When she got home, she warned Guiju not to go to the sauna again, but Guiju refused. He insisted that he definitely wanted to get married. Seeing that she could not stop her son, Mrs. Manhome agreed to let her son marry Dahae. So the next day, Guiju went to the sauna to propose to Dahae with flowers. Dahae was surprised and couldn't believe it. Dahae said that he didn't need to try to save her. She was still living well in front of him. Guiju said that because she was alive, it gave him hope that one day he would save her. That hope helped him try every day. Then he gave her the bouquet. That night, Dahae's family celebrated for successfully fooling Guiju's family. But during the party, Dahae didn't seem happy. She found an excuse to go to her room and go to bed early. Mrs. Lee Hong knew what Dahae was thinking, so she went upstairs and said that if Dahae didn't finish this matter, she wouldn't let Dahae live in peace. Ine was asked to meet Hi-Rim. Hi-Rim threw back the shoes Ine gave her because she was angry about the day they went to the park. Hi-Rim left Ine bewildered, not knowing what she did wrong. She ran home and stole her grandmother's watch. Then the wedding day came. The two mothers smiled and talked happily on the surface, but in their hearts they hated each other. When Mrs. Manhome entered the house, she caught Ine stealing something in her secret place. Mrs. Manhome thought that Ine did it because she was hurt when she saw her father getting a new wife. Mrs. Manhome told Ine to rest assured. After today, no one could take her father away. At the gym, Donghee asked Grace to model weightlifting for her. Then Donghee gave Grace a very heavy weight and said that she was going to ruin her brother's wedding because she found evidence that Min Dahae was a scammer. Though Dong-hee found drugs in Da-hae's room. Grace accidentally said that it was not drugs, but sleeping pills. Hearing that, Dong-hee rushed home to search Da-hae's things, leaving Grace stuck with the weight. When Grace escaped, she rushed over to stop Dong-hee's plan. At this time, Dong-hee had found the Bok family heirloom ring hidden in Da-hae's luggage, which would be evidence to expose Da-hae. When Dong-hee was about to go out to tell her mother, she met Grace, and the two struggled for a long time. Dong-hee fell down the stairs, but she was not injured and was floating in the air. Grace looked at that scene with a very surprised face. It turned out that Dong-hee could fly. At the same time, a wedding was being held outside. Guiju held Da-hae's hand, her face showing happiness. Da-hae remembered Guiju's father telling her about his past. Guiju was always taken back to the moment when In-ae was born. At that time, Da-hae's school was also burned down. Therefore, she was Guiju's hope in the present. Remembering this, Da-hae told the truth that she was a scammer. Mrs. Manhome was her third target. Just as Dong-hee predicted, Da-hae put sleeping pills in the tea, except for Mrs. Manhome. Everyone was surprised by Da-hae's actions. That night, Mr. Sungu's family was cleaning up after the wedding. Dong-hee asked why her mother knew everything but didn't tell the family, making her waste time buying the most expensive real flowers. When Mr. Sungu spoke up to protect Da-hae, Mrs. Manhome and Dong-hee continuously scolded Da-hae. Guiju kept going back to the moment of the two people's wedding. After Da-hae left, Guiju immediately chased after her. Suddenly, Grace and Dong-hee ran over. Both of them argued. Grace said that Dong-hee could fly, while Dong-hee said that Da-hae's family was a scammer. Mrs. Lee Hong looked at Mrs. Manhome's reaction and realized that she didn't seem surprised at all. Mrs. Manhome also declared that if Da-hae's family kept their ability a secret, she would also ignore the fact that Da-hae's family had scammed her family. At the same time, Guiju asked Da-hae if she said everything was a scam, would she lie about him saving her from the fire 13 years ago? Da-hae admitted that it was a lie. Suddenly, she saw Guiju from the future coming. She looked at both of them in surprise. Then Guiju returned to the present. He tore up the marriage certificate. At the sauna, Mrs. Lee Hong questioned Da-hae about why she did that today. Da-hae only said that she stopped this scam. This time, everyone in Mrs. Lee Hong's family began to believe that Mrs. Manhome's family had supernatural powers. From that day on, Sungu's family began to see changes in Guiju. He kept going back to the past suddenly, which made the whole family worried because they didn't know his whereabouts. In-ae was sleeping in class when her boyfriend came and asked her to go eat spicy noodles. In-ae refused. Her boyfriend said that Hi-rim was also going. At the same time, Hi-rim came and asked In-ae to go eat and took off her glasses. Thanks to that, In-ae read Hi-rim's mind. Hi-rim thought that In-ae shouldn't go with them. Realizing that Hi-rim was lying, In-ae pushed Hi-rim hard and ran out while her classmates mocked her. Everyone thought Hi-rim was generous, but In-ae didn't know what was going on. In-ae dropped her glasses in class and forgot to take them back. Her boyfriend picked them up. In-ae ran out into the street and almost got into an accident. People around her ran to help her, but with her ability, In-ae knew that they were being annoying and cursed her inwardly. In-ae felt scared and miserable. She immediately ran to the bathhouse to find Da-hae, but Da-hae wasn't home. In-ae was greeted by Mrs. Lee Hong and Hyung-tae. Mrs. Lee Hong took the initiative to offer In-ae rice water and eggs. She wanted to investigate In-ae, but the girl was very smart, so she didn't reveal anything. So Mrs. Lee Hong opened the door for Da-hae to go down. Mrs. Lee Hong said to take advantage of In-ae at this time. If Da-hae does this well, she might forgive Da-hae for ruining the wedding. It turns out that Da-hae was locked up for ruining the plan. Da-hae goes to talk to In-ae. In-ae realizes that Da-hae is locked up, so Da-hae covers her eyes and talks to her. In-ae says that she lost her glasses and that she accidentally looked into someone else's eyes, so she was very scared. Da-hae is the only person In-ae isn't scared to see when losing her glasses. Because she feels uncomfortable, Da-hae takes the initiative to take In-ae to buy new glasses. The two pass by Mrs. Lee Hong and she holds In-ae back, so In-ae reads her mind. After the two buy glasses, Da-hae calls Guiju to pick In-ae up. In-ae sees this and warns Da-hae that she read Mrs. Lee Hong's mind earlier. If Da-hae lets In-ae go now, Mrs. Lee Hong won't let Da-hae be at peace. Da-hae ignored In-ae's words and still took In-ae back to Guiju. Seeing In-ae with the person who had deceived his family, Guiju worriedly asked In-ae if she was okay. In-ae just said that she had come to Da-hae herself and that Da-hae had fed her and bought her a new pair of glasses. Guiju led In-ae into the car. Then he went out to talk to Da-hae. Da-hae told her to take good care of In-ae. Guiju recounted that 13 years ago, his captain risked his life to save a female student in her school's fire. If he wasn't the one who saved her, then it could be the captain. So Guiju advised Da-hae to live a meaningful life and not let the captain's sacrifice be in vain. After saying that, Guiju left. When Da-hae turned around, she saw the future Guiju smiling. He asked her to take care of herself and pulled her hand to the current Guiju's car. Da-hae felt that the situation was unusual, so she refused his offer. The two struggled for a while, which caught Guiju's attention. After seeing Da-hae's unusual actions, he realized that it seemed like his future self was talking to her. Future Guiju asked Da-hae to pass on the message that Dong-hee was about to be in danger. Guiju needed to go to the gym right away. The two of them rushed there, and sure enough, Dong-hee fell from a high place. It turned out that a few minutes before, Grace wanted to see Dong-hee fly like before, so she turned off all the elevators and left a construction sign on the stairs. At that time, Dong-hee wanted to go down to the the first floor because she had an appointment with her lover. She looked down from above and wondered if she should fly, so she climbed the stairs to try flying. Suddenly, Grace appeared and pushed Dong-hee down, hitting Gwiju, who had just run over. After that fall, Dong-hee looked up and saw Da-hae not far away. Dong-hee thought that Da-hae was the one who did everything. Then, Dong-hee fainted. Da-hae and Gwiju immediately took Dong-hee to the hospital because they were afraid that the fall would affect her health. But when they arrived, the doctor concluded that Dong-hee fainted due to excessive weight loss and that there was nothing serious. After Dong-hee woke up, the first thing she did was call her mother to say that she fell down the stairs. Then she saw Da-hae nearby, so Da-hae must have planned this. Before she could finish speaking, Gwiju snatched the phone and told Dong-hee everything. Unfortunately, Hung-tae was nearby and heard everything. Outside, In asked Da-hae how she knew Dong-hee would be in danger. In threatened to look into Da-hae's eyes and force her to tell the truth that Gwiju from the future warned her. Da-hae could see and touch Gwiju from the future. Mrs. Manhome and Mr. Soon-gu were surprised when Dong-hee told them the news. Mrs. Manhome thought that Da-hae had just kidnapped In-ae and harmed her daughter. The couple immediately went to the hospital. When they arrived, Mrs. Manhome immediately slapped Da-hae hard and told her to stay away from her family. When Da-hae left, In-ae protected Da-hae and told what had just happened. Dong-hee returned home safely. She thanked Gwiju for helping her. Their relationship was better than before. In-ae told Gwiju to go save Da-hae. Maybe she was locked up somewhere right now for breaking up the wedding. Hearing that, Gwiju felt suspicious. He went back to the past and saw that after Da-hae broke up the wedding, she was slapped hard by Mrs. Lee Hong. Then Mrs. Lee Hong dragged her into the car. Back to the present at the bathhouse, the whole family was questioning Da-hae because she kept the secret that only she could touch Gwiju when he went back to the past. Suddenly someone came to find her. It was Gwiju. He came and proposed a deal. He knew Mrs. Lee Hong wanted to take advantage of his family's ability to get rich, so he promised to steal future through lottery or stocks to her on the condition that Da-hae had to stay by his side all the time. Mrs. Lee Hong and her family agreed, except for Da-hae. She said that she refused to be with someone who suddenly disappeared and then suddenly appeared like that. After saying that, she left. Then Gwiju went back to the past when they both picked up In-ae, and the same thing happened. When Gwiju disappeared, Da-hae admitted to Mrs. Lee Hong that she did not want to participate in this case because she had feelings for Gwiju, so she wanted Mrs. Lee Hong to respect her decision. The following days, Gwiju continuously followed Da-hae to the bathhouse, even though Da-hae wanted to chase him away. But Mrs. Lee Hong's family happily welcomed him. Da-hae continued to find another target to scam. This person was a single father. The two made an appointment to meet at a coffee shop. Gwiju kept following Da-hae. Sure enough, with just a few words, she successfully fooled the single father. She even intentionally caused the cup on the table to fall and broke, pretending to be worried about the single father. Gwiju saw it all from beginning to end. He realized that the wine bottle falling was not his fault, but Da-hae's trick. Gwiju couldn't stand it anymore. He walked in front of them and introduced himself as Da-hae's third husband. After saying that, he pulled Da-hae's hand and led her outside. When they reached the door, Da-hae advised him to spend time doing other things instead of following her. Suddenly, Da-hae found another target. She walked up and started to approach him. At this moment, his wife came out. She thought that Da-hae was her husband's new lover and was about to make a scene of jealousy. Luckily, Gwiju came over and pulled Da-hae's hand away. Gwiju asked her to go eat with him. Da-hae said that if he gave her 10,000 won per hour, she would go. Gwiju agreed and took her to a bar, and the two happily talked to each other. Da-hae said that she still felt happy the first time she ate red bean shaved ice, or the first time she rode a bike. Suddenly, Gwiju returned to the past. At that time, he had just started working as a firefighter and was being reprimanded by his boss for climbing a tree to save a cat. However, in the boss's eyes, he was happy because his subordinate had done a good job, and Gwiju smiled at that memory. At this moment, from afar, Gwiju saw Mrs. Lee Hong and Hing-tae entering the funeral home, which was Da-hae's father's funeral. Mrs. Lee Hong took all the condolence money and asked Da-hae to sign the insurance papers. When Da-hae died, the insurance money would belong to her. After the two left, Gwiju walked to the funeral and touched Da-hae. Da-hae was surprised at the man in front of her and asked Gwiju who he was. Realizing that the man in front of her was not a bad person, Da-hae felt relieved and cried loudly. After Gwiju returned home, In-ae blocked the stairs and worriedly asked where Da-hae was. She took off her glasses to use her powers and was relieved to know that Da-hae was safe. At the same time, Mr. Soon-gu was drinking at the bar. A beautiful lady came over and listened to him. Then she leaned her head on his shoulder. Suddenly her husband appeared and grabbed Mr. Soon-gu's collar. He threatened to sue Mr. Soon-gu for molesting his wife. Mr. Soon-gu begged him not to make a big deal out of it. Mr. Soon-gu promised to compensate him. At the gym, Dong-hee checked the camera again and found out that Grace was the one who set her up to fall. Just as Grace walked over, Dong-hee angrily chased after Grace and wanted to push Grace down the stairs. Grace said that she pushed Dong-hee down because she thought she would fly and land safely. Grace begged Dong-hee to forgive her this time, and Dong-hee could do whatever she wanted, so Dong-hee forgave her. On this side, Da-hae and Gwiju were having an impromptu date under Hung-tae's supervision. Gwiju said that he could only go back to the past if the past was a happy memory, so Mrs. Lee Hong forced Hung Tae to follow them and did everything she could to make the two of them have a happy date. However, no matter how hard they tried, the two of them still didn't feel happy. Suddenly, Guiju thought of an idea. He suggested that they go with Hung Tae to buy red bean shaved ice in Dahae's hometown, so the two of them took a bus back to her hometown. After buying the shaved ice, Guiju looked at the lottery ticket tonight and entered the photo studio to go back to the past this afternoon. After waiting for the other two to leave, Guiju walked up to Dahae and gave her a bowl of red bean shaved ice. Dahae's face showed great happiness. 13 years ago, she had intended to steal bread. A woman saw that scene. Not only did she not report Dahae, she also took the initiative to pay for it. Then she offered Dahae some red bean shaved ice, which was the first time Dahae had eaten that. The woman recognized Dahae as the female student from the school that burned down last time, so she did that. Recalling those memories, Dahae cried while enjoying the food. Guiju also gave Dahae the winning lottery ticket and said that it was hers. She should use it to pay off Lee Hong's debt. Dahae also said that in her luggage there was a relic left by the person who saved her, which was a ring. She hoped that he could return it to the captain's family. Then Guiju returned under Hung Tae's surprised gaze. Before, when he saw Guiju enter the photo studio, he also entered but did not see Guiju anywhere. Suddenly, Guiju came out of the photo studio, making him extremely shocked. In another development, Donghee's lover came to the appointment with her. Suddenly, he felt that today was strange. On the way, he heard familiar music. When he entered the coffee shop, he recognized a familiar scent and a familiar cake. All of this reminded him of the time when he liked Donghee. At that time, Donghae was still a model. He didn't know that Grace had deliberately set up those things to make him remember those things. Then Donghee would come to see him by chance. He told Donghee that today, her image was all that was on his mind. Thought that the two of them would start a love relationship like before, but he only asked if the two of them would get a 50 billion building after getting married, right? That surprised both girls. Because of that, Donghee continued to lose weight. She believed that after returning to her original model form, her lover would care more about her. Because of overtraining, Donghee fainted. Grace hurriedly took her to the sauna to rest. The two became closer after this incident. At school, In-ae was bullied for her actions the day before. They threw In-ae's phone to the ground, breaking it. Seeing that, Hung Tae stepped forward to stop them. Only then did the bullies leave. In-ae wanted to go back to the sauna to see Dahae again. After returning to the sauna, In-ae was depressed because no one played with her. Hung Tae played with In-ae. Whoever lost would have their forehead flicked. This stimulated her competitive nature. In-ae immediately took off her glasses and played this game, resulting in Hung Tae's forehead being flicked red. This was seen by Mrs. Lee Hong, who began to be suspicious. Mrs. Manhom then called Dahae out to give her the newly bought car. Mrs. Manhom did not forget to tell Dahae to stay away from her family. Dahae gave Mrs. Manhom the winning lottery ticket and told her to take this and not let Guiju bother me anymore. After saying that, Dahae left. Mrs. Manhom looked at the lottery ticket in surprise. Mrs. Manhom then realized that Dahae got this thanks to Guiju's ability. On this side, Mr. Soon-gu tried to find things in the family's secret room to sell to pay for debt. After finding nothing valuable, he went into the bedroom and found his wife sleeping. In one hand she held the family heirloom ring, in the other hand she held the lottery ticket. He realized that the lottery ticket could help him at this time. Mr. Soon-gu tiptoed to steal the lottery ticket. When he successfully took the lottery ticket, Mr. Soon-gu stepped out and saw Guiju coming in. Guiju asked about Dahae's luggage. Mr. Soon-gu said that he had cleaned them because Mrs. Manhom didn't want to see them. Guiju told his father that he was looking for a ring in Dahae's luggage. Mr. Soon-gu realized something and pointed to the ring Mrs. Lau Manhom was holding in her hand. They saw the Bok family heirloom ring in Dahae's luggage. Mr. Soon-gu said that the whole family suspected that Dahae stole the ring from the family safe. Hearing that, Guiju hurriedly went down to the safe to check, but the ring was still inside. He took out the ring from Dahae's luggage to compare. Surprisingly, the two rings were identical. At that moment, Guiju realized that the person who saved Dahae was not the captain, but him. So, Guiju called Dahae out and announced that the person who saved her from the fire was him. At the same time, Mrs. Manhom dreamed that her son gave a ring to Dahae in the fire. She woke up in a state of fear. Mrs. Manhom warned her son about her dream. She also told him to stay away from Dahae, but he reassured her and showed her the two rings. He explained everything to her and said that he had saved Dahae from the fire 13 years ago. Hearing what her son said, Mrs. Manhom thought about it and realized that the fate between the two of them was still there, so Dahae could be the one to help the Bok family prosper again. Suddenly, she remembered the lottery ticket that won the jackpot and realized that it was no longer there, because the lottery ticket was sent by Mr. Soon-gu to the person who was blackmailing him. Mr. Soon-gu felt relieved and thought that his wife would not find out. However, when Mr. Soon-gu returned, he found that his wife had been sent a picture of him dancing with someone else in a nightclub by an anonymous person. Mr. Soon-gu explained to the woman that he was just a normal dance partner. Why did the woman's husband take the money and then break the deal? At that moment, Missy Manhom realized that he had taken the lottery ticket to pay the person who was blackmailing him. The two had an argument. Mrs. Manhom shouted that she had been betrayed by him since she could not dream of him, right? Mr. Soon-gu admitted that he had felt uncomfortable being under her control when she had dreamed of every single thing he did. Mrs. Manholm was disappointed and said that she would free him so he should pack his things and leave the house immediately. When Mr. Soon-gu was about to leave, In-ae came and read his mind. She knew where he really went. Back to the group of people who blackmailed Soon-gu. It turned out that these people knew Miss Lee Hong. They colluded with her to trick Soon-gu. So Miss Lee Hong easily got the lottery ticket. When Miss Lee Hong brought the lottery ticket home, Da-hae saw the lottery ticket. She knew that her foster mother had committed this scam. Miss Lee Hong praised Da-hae for doing a good job with a sarcastic tone. The next day, Da-hae asked Guiju out. She told him that his father was tricked by Mrs. Lee Hong for money, so now his father is not home because Mrs. Manholm chased his father away. This is just the beginning, so she hopes he will stop following her if he doesn't want his family to be broken. Because the person Mrs. Lee Hong is targeting might be Mrs. Manholm. The person who saved her has a scar on his neck, but he doesn't, so that person isn't Guiju. Instead of trying to save her, he should save his family first, especially his mother, because she has the ability to dream the future. So he went home to find his mother, but she wasn't home. Mrs. Manholm was having dinner with Dong-hee and her lover. The two were presenting the idea that in the future, they would use the building to do a project for a beauty salon and gym when they got married and inherited the 50 billion building. Mrs. Manholm was having a headache because of her husband's problem. When Dong-hee's boyfriend kept talking non-stop, she coldly asked Dong-hee, "I heard you say that your boyfriend betrayed you." Dong-hee's face became sad, and she told her boyfriend to go out. When the two of them were alone, Dong-hee realized that her father had left the house. She said that her father left because he was upset with her mother's control. Even she had to give up her dream to follow her mother's wishes, including getting married. After saying that, she went out. Then, Mrs. Manholm went out to pay, but for some reason, her card couldn't be paid. While she was wondering what to do, Mrs. Lee Hong suddenly appeared and paid the bill for Mrs. Manholm without hesitation. Then, Mrs. Lee Hong said that Mrs. Manholm's complexion didn't look very good. Mrs. Lee Hong even invited Mrs. Manholm to the sauna. At house, Guiju searched his father's pocket, realizing that his father had gone to the dance hall was the direct cause of his father leaving the house. In-ae is being bullied by the whole class because of what happened the other day. The classmates said that In-ae pretends to be gentle and is also cared for by a gangster uncle. Hiram holds her hand and pretends to care for In-ae, but In-ae reads Hiram's mind and pushes Hiram away. The homeroom teacher calls Guiju because In-ae is absent without permission. He worriedly goes to the sauna to ask Da-hae to find In-ae with him. They can't call In-ae because her phone is broken. While the two are at a loss, Gin-tae appears and says that he knows the places In-ae often goes to because he often follows her. So he takes the two to the places she often goes. In-ae often eats instant noodles alone, drinks coffee alone, and goes to the park to play with her phone alone. But they can't find In-ae in those places. The three of them split up to look for In-ae. Da-hae decides to go to the sauna, while Guiju goes home. When Da-hae arrived at the bathhouse, she only saw Lee Hong taking Manholm home, and In-ae was not there. Lee Hong saw Da-hae's expression. She said that she was really worried and wanted to befriend Manholm because she wanted to bring the two of them together and had no intention of harming Manholm. But Da-hae repaid her by bringing the winning lottery ticket to the Bok family instead of giving it to her. Da-hae said that Guiju gave Da-hae the money to pay off debt and leave Mrs. Lee Hong, but Da-hae chose to live with Lee Hong because she felt sorry for Lee Hong. Mrs. Lee Hong is always sad because of her dead daughter, but if Mrs. Lee Hong dares to do something bad to the Bok family, Da-hae is ready to fight back. Then Da-hae leaves the sauna despite Mrs. Lee Hong's screaming. On this side, Guiju returns home but cannot find In-ae. He searches in the drawer and finds a broken phone. At this time, Da-hae also arrives. Guiju expresses that he is not a good father for leaving In-ae alone for too long and does not understand her psychology. Suddenly, Da-hae sees Guiju of the future and is informed by him that In-ae is in the school gym. The two immediately run there. At the gym, In-ae's classmates are gossiping about her boyfriend leaving the dance club because he confessed to someone in the club but was rejected. The classmates are curious about who that person is. Suddenly, Hiram sees In-ae dozing off in the gym storage room. Hiram is angry about what In-ae did to her, so Hiram came up with the idea of punishing In-ae. Hiram secretly locked the warehouse door from the outside and trapped In-ae inside. When In-ae woke up, she was scared when she realized she was locked up. She tried to knock on the door and call for someone but no one heard. In-ae was scared, worried, and didn't know what to do. That night, Guiju and Da-hae ran to the gym and knocked on the door continuously. It attracted the security guard, so he took the key and successfully rescued In-ae. When the three of them went to eat, In-ae told Guiju that she couldn't go to school. There were too many eyes watching in the school, which made Guiju confused. Then In-ae ran into the bathroom. Da-hae ran after her and saw her crying inside. In-ae said that she just wanted to fit in with her friends, but she didn't understand why things turned out like this. She would rather be invisible like before. Da-hae listened to In-ae and she shared that she had experienced a similar situation. Da-hae was once locked in a warehouse and no one knew. Then there was a fire and luckily someone came to save Da-hae. Da-hae wanted In-ae to know that no matter how difficult it was, there would be someone willing to overcome that difficulty to help In-ae. Da-hae's encouragement made In-ae feel warm and less worried. When Da-hae went out, she advised Guiju not to ask too many questions questions about school later. Instead, he just needed to look into In-ae's eyes and he would have the answer. Then the father and daughter went to the park. Guiju invited In-ae to drink coffee. He knew this was his daughter's favorite drink after Hung-tae told him, but In-ae brushed it away, causing the coffee cup to spill. Worried about his daughter, Guiju took off his glasses and offered to clean them. That action made In-ae and Guiju look at each other. In-ae read her father's thoughts about her. Guiju apologized for leaving In-ae alone all this time. Guiju wanted to make it up to her in the future and spend more time with her. She had read all of his thoughts. This time, Guiju realized that In-ae's superpower was to read other people's thoughts when looking into their eyes. In-ae said that she didn't want him to go back to the moment she was born because that moment had made both her father and mother suffer. Guiju realized that In-ae's ability was to read other people's thoughts, which was why In-ae always avoided other people's eyes. Going back 7 years ago, when In-ae's mother was driving, In-ae's mother accidentally made eye contact with her. In-ae read her mother's thoughts, saying that she was born on the day of the fire. In-ae innocently asked her mother if her birth was wrong. In-ae's mother was surprised by In-ae's question, so she drove and got into an accident. From then on, In-ae always thought that her birth was a mistake. That made In-ae feel guilty all this time. After learning about his daughter's situation, Guiju hugged In-ae and kept apologizing for not knowing her thoughts. He said the moment she was born had a very special meaning to him. This time, In-ae saw someone who, when she looked into her eyes, she was no longer afraid of that person. On the contrary, she felt warmer. That was her father. Then Guiju helped In-ae learn to ride a bike. When In-ae was able to ride a bike, Dahae, Guiju and In-ae were all very happy. At the sauna, Mrs. Manhung woke up and told her dream that Mrs. Lee Hong's eldest daughter was still alive. Mrs. Lee Hong will soon hug the child and cry and say that it was lucky that her child was still alive. It turned out that Dahae had met Mrs. Manhung before and told that Mrs. Lee Hong had a daughter, but she died when she was young while Mrs. Lee Hong was in prison. If Mrs. Manhung talked about Mrs. Hong's dead daughter, Mrs. Manhung would have the initiative and Mrs. Lee Hong would waver. In another development, Dong-hee was climbing stairs under Grace's training to lose weight. Then the two went to the rooftop. Grace asked Dong-hee to let her fly with her ability, but Dong-hee refused. While riding her bike, In-ae met her boyfriend again. She was flustered and was about to leave, but her boyfriend called her back and gave her a pair of glasses. Her boyfriend said that if In-ae hated him so much, he would try his best to avoid them when they met at school. After saying that, her boyfriend left. Suddenly, In-ae expressed his feelings for her boyfriend, surprising him. At the same time, Guiju and Dahae were talking to each other. Guiju realized that Dahae knew about In-ae's ability. Suddenly, Guiju returned to the moment In-ae was born. Looking at his family before his eyes, Guiju felt extremely happy. When he returned, he said that he would save Dahae. After that, Guiju took out 2 rings and put them on both of their hands. This time, Guiju admitted that he liked her. The two looked at each other and kissed passionately. Meanwhile, Mrs. Manhung was having a nightmare about Guiju. Mrs. Manhung went to the dance hall where her husband was sitting and shouted his name, forcing him to leave. After seeing her husband, Mrs. Manhung panicked and said that he and his son might die. Dahae returned to the Bok family. The whole family welcomed her. They had lunch together in an uncomfortable atmosphere. Guiju didn't notice it. He happily said that it felt like a dream when the whole family had dinner like this. It turned out that Mrs. Manhung had come to Dahae before and told about her dream. In it, their family was holding a funeral for Guiju. It was a funeral without a body, so it was possible that 13 years ago, he saved Dahae and died in that fire. Hearing this, Dahae wanted to stop Guiju from going back to the past, but Mrs. Manhung said that she tried to change her dream when she learned that her father had died, but failed. So she wanted Guiju to be happy in her last moments, even if she had to rely on a scammer. So she asked Dahae to return to her house to help Guiju have happy times. At school, everyone knew that Hyram had intentionally locked In-ae in the warehouse. This time, Hyram was shunned by her friends for living a fake life while In-ae and her boyfriend were now a couple. Hyram went to In-ae and explained that she didn't do that. However, In-ae replied that Hyram should hide her feelings well. Now everyone knows Hyram's evil nature. After saying that, In-ae ran towards her boyfriend, leaving Hyram standing alone and sad. At home, Guiju suggested to his father that he wanted the whole family to move to a smaller house because the family currently couldn't afford the expenses of living in such a big house. Mr. Soon-gu wanted to refuse because this house was the house where the Bok family had lived for generations. Suddenly, Mrs. Manhung appeared and agreed to Guiju's request. Then she signaled him to enter the room. It turned out that the two of them had made a pact to return for their son. When the time came for Guiju to die, they would divorce. Mrs. Manhung wanted Mr. Soon-gu and Dong-hee to keep this secret from Guiju. The 50 billion house would also belong to Dong-hee. Everyone was heartbroken when they learned that Guiju was about to die, and Guiju wanted to go back to the moments. In-ae was born to save Dahae, but she stopped him. She wanted him to save her 13 years ago when they got married. At the bathhouse, Mrs. Lee Hong had prepared a plot. It turned out that Hung-tae was not Lee Hong's husband, but Mrs. Lee Hong's younger brother. Right now, Dahae did not know her adoptive mother's plot. She was enjoying happy days with Guiju and In-ae. Only In-ae and Guiju did not know that Guiju would die if he returned to save Dahae. 5 days later, Guiju and Dahae drove to the sea together. The two happily talked about a movie and argued about what color shirt the female lead was wearing. They both bet that whoever lost would have to fulfill a condition given by the other. When Guiju was about to check online, Dahye advised him to go back to the moment he watched the movie to confirm, and he happily agreed. Unexpectedly, when he returned, the car got into an accident. Dahye disappeared. The police came to rescue Guiju and looked for Dahye. They thought that Guiju was so scared that he didn't remember anything about the accident. The truth was that when the accident happened, he was in the past and couldn't give a detailed statement to the police. The police searched all day, and in the end, they only found a jacket that Guiju bought for Dahye. Guiju held the jacket and cried, so he was abandoned again. The next morning, the police left Guiju alone there. A few days later, he went to the bathhouse to ask Mrs. Lee Hong about it. He thought she had staged Dahye's disappearance as an accident, but she denied it and cried out in pain, asking why he couldn't have prevented the accident when he had superpowers. In the following days, Guiju continued to get drunk. He regretted not being able to prevent the accident. The whole family was sad. Everyone wondered why this accident happened exactly like 7 years ago. Dong-hee thought that if this happened to prevent Guiju from going back to the past, it would be a blessing. Mrs. Man-hum saw this as an opportunity for Guiju not to go back to the past. She went to Guiju and convinced him that losing his ability might be a gift from their ancestors. Dong-hae was trying on wedding dresses. She had successfully lost weight. Her boyfriend was very happy and kept urging her to hold the wedding, even though she wanted to postpone it because Guiju was having problems, but he still didn't care. When he went out, he called another girl to promise to give her a floor in Dong-hee's building. It turned out that his philandering nature had not changed. At the junkyard, Guiju was still trying to find the car that had the accident, looking for information about Dahye's disappearance. That made everyone feel annoyed. Dong-hee and In-ae also came. Dong-hee advised him to let go of the past and accept the truth. After Dong-hee left, In-ae recounted that there was a time when she looked into Dahye's eyes, but she saw that Dahye was singing the national anthem. It seemed that Dahye was hiding something, so Guiju tried to go back to the past. He returned to the exact moment when the two were lying in bed. He told Dahye to absolutely not drive to the beach on a rainy day, otherwise she would have an accident. Then he returned to the present and realized that nothing had changed. Both wondered why Guiju had warned her, but Dahye still accepted the trip. In-ae said that maybe Dahye knew she had an accident, but for some reason she still went despite Guiju's warning. Then In-ae went to the sauna to find Hung-tae. That was the only clue at the moment. Seeing Hung-tae outside the door, In-ae tried to ask about Dahye, but Hung-tae avoided her. He put on sunglasses because he knew In-ae's ability and went into the sauna. Mrs. Lee Hong heard In-ae's conversation. Hung-tae explained that In-ae was just talking nonsense. Mrs. Lee Hong asked Hung-tae if he had finished handling it. Hung-tae confirmed that he had finished handling it, but she asked why after that. Hung-tae went to the beach again. Hung-tae replied that he wanted to take a walk. Mrs. Lee Hong asked to check Hung-tae's call history. Seeing nothing, she became suspicious and forced Hung-tae to go to the beach he had been to. Before Hung-tae took Mrs. Lee Hong away, he made eye contact with In-ae. Thanks to that, In-ae knew that Dahye was still alive and where her current address was. In-ae hurriedly ran home and reported to Guiju that Dahye was still alive. It turned out that the last time Dahye met Mrs. Man-hum, she realized that in order to save Guiju, everyone had to prevent Guiju from returning to the past. So Dahye told Mrs. Man-hum that she would fake her death so that Guiju could not use his ability. Only Hung-tae knew about this detailed plan. Dahye begged Hung-tae to help her and said that this was her last scam. So on the day of the accident, Dahye suggested that Guiju return to the past. After he left, she and Hung-tae deliberately staged the scene as if there was a car accident. Then she threw her shirt into the river and the two left. Back in the present, Dahye was at the beach. A moment later, Guiju came looking for her. Dahye saw Guiju and ran away worriedly, but he caught up with her and asked why she lied about her death. At this point, Dahye could only tell him the truth. At this time, no one in his house saw him, so they were very worried. In-ae ran out and said that Guiju was looking for Dahye. Mrs. Man-hum was very scared when she heard. In-ae saw Mrs. Man-hum's strange reaction. She took off her glasses and read Mrs. Man-hum's thoughts. This time, both In-ae and Guiju realized that there was a possibility that Guiju would die if they returned. They both realized that Dahye did everything just to keep Guiju safe. Even if he had to live in torment, she would die. Guiju was not happy was okay, as long as it kept him alive. Guiju said that it was thanks to meeting her that he was able to escape from his long-standing depression. If he had not saved her in the past, he would not have been happy either. The two hugged and kissed passionately, spending a happy time at the beach. The next day, Guiju went to buy breakfast and met Mrs. Lee Hong and Hung-tae there. When she saw Guiju buy 2 portions, she was sure Dahye was still alive, but she wondered why Dahye would trick Guiju just to run away from her. Guiju said that Dahye was running away from him, not from her, and he explained that he would go back in time to save Dahye from the fire 13 years ago, and he could have died in that fire, so Dahye faked his death to keep him alive. Dahye woke up and didn't see Guiju. She panicked and ran out of the house and see Guiju come back after buying food. Only then did Dahye breathe a sigh of relief. After that, the two of them had breakfast together on the beach. Dahye looked at Guiju's neck, which still had no scar, and she felt relieved. Dahye said that everyone in the house knew about this, except for In-A, but maybe she would know soon too. Sure enough, when the two returned, In-A was sad because she knew everything. She blamed herself for revealing and ruining Da-hae's plan. Then she went upstairs. Dong-hee looked for Guiju to talk. Dong-hee recounted that many years ago, she was a very famous supermodel, so she had the opportunity to perform at the last, which was the most prestigious position on the catwalk. However, Mrs. Monhom stopped Dong-hee, saying that she had a dream that the last performer fell to the floor and was seriously injured. Therefore, Dong-hee did not go to the catwalk, so someone else had to perform in her place, with shoes made specifically for Dong-hee. Because the shoes did not fit, the unfortunate girl fell and landed on the floor just as Mrs. Monhom said. Dong-hee realized that she had made the wrong decision. She regretted and was sad. Her dream of becoming a model disappeared, and since then, Dong-hee has been eating constantly and has become so fat. On this side, Mrs. Monhom thanks Da-hae. Through this, Mrs. Monhom knows that Da-hae has been wholeheartedly helping Guiju. Da-hae convinces Mrs. Monhom that she will find another way to prevent Guiju from returning to the past. This time, Mrs. Monhom advises Da-hae to follow her dream, because if Mrs. Monhom dreams, it will definitely come true. This ability is not a good thing. It is a curse because she always dreams of bad luck for her children. Mrs. Monhom said that recently she dreamed of Dong-hee and another woman with messy hair in Dong-hee's and husband's bridal chamber. So she thought that they were fighting. So she thought that Dong-hee's marriage would not be happy. However, she could not tell her daughter because Dong-hee had previously followed Mrs. Monhom's dream. Her supermodel career was ruined. Da-hae understood everything. Da-hae went to In-A's room and saw her blaming herself. Da-hae said that everyone in the family was born with superpowers, but instead of being grateful, the whole family tried to hide it and thought it was a curse. So Da-hae comforted In-A that she would turn that curse into something good. The next day, Dong-hee's fiance took her to see a new apartment. He excitedly introduced the apartment, constantly talking about how much time and effort he had spent looking for this beautiful apartment. When Dong-hee mentioned that they would not buy this apartment, but live with her family, he looked unhappy and said that living like that was not convenient for Dong-hee. He quickly urged Dong-hee to buy the apartment as their newlywed home. He also bragged that the deposit here was a bit high, but he convinced the owner to lower the price. That left Dong-hee speechless. He had an affair with his mistress, which was discovered by Da-hae. Da-hae took a photo of Dong-hee's fiancé cheating. Then she sent the photo on his phone and threatened him. He had to give her 200,000, or he had to cancel the wedding with Dong-hee and disappear. He refused and took back his phone to delete the photo. Hyung-tae suddenly appeared, pulled his shirt, and made him not dare to touch Da-hae anymore. Then Da-hae bought milk for Hyung-tae and asked him if he was okay. Mrs. Lee Hong knew he lied to protect Da-hae. Hyung-tae only replied that he should not interfere in other people's family matters. Da-hae refused, saying that if it weren't for Guiju 13 years ago, she would have died in the fire. Hyung-tae went home and reported the incident to Mrs. Lee Hong. She realized that both Da-hae and Guiju tried to save each other. She called Grace and asked them both to help Da-hae kick Dong-hee's boyfriend out of the house. At Guiju's house, he visited Dong-hee and found out that his sister was secretly eating snacks. Dong-hee was sad because her powers had not returned, even though she tried to lose weight. Guiju went back to the past when the two sisters were young. At that time, little Guiju was in the hospital because of malnutrition. He didn't even want to eat rice, so Dong-hee, who was a chubby girl, ate Guiju's rice. Seeing her sister eating deliciously, Guiju expressed that he wanted to eat rice too, so Dong-hee fed him, and the two sisters laughed and talked happily. At that time, Dong-hee flew everywhere, regardless of her weight. Therefore, Guiju realized that it wasn't her weight that hindered Dong-hee's superpowers. She could fly because she was happy, so he told Dong-hee to break up with her boyfriend because she herself was not happy in this marriage. However, Dong-hee was still hesitant. The next day, Dong-hee's fiancé found a place to borrow money to get the full 200,000 won. When he was depressed and didn't know where to find money, Hyung-tae approached him and introduced him to a place to borrow money. After Dong-hee's boyfriend had enough 200,000 won, he gave it to Da-hae, which surprised her. So her plan failed. As soon as he left, Grace went to Da-hae and said, "I'm glad you're alive." Grace convinced Da-hae to let her join the scam. Grace didn't want to see Dong-hee broken down because of that terrible boyfriend. So when the group discovered that Dong-hee's fiancé brought his mistress to the newlywed house to have an affair, Grace immediately took Dong-hee there. After Dong-hee saw everything, he knelt down and apologized to Dong-hee, but she didn't forgive him and insisted on breaking up. Dong-hee also canceled the house contract and demanded the money he still owed her. At that time, Da-hae appeared with 200,000 won and said that she had already asked for money for Dong-hee. When he saw them acting friendly with each other, he realized that he had been tricked. He immediately chased after the two girls to get the money back. In the process, he accidentally pushed Grace down the stairs. Dong-hee saw that scene. She didn't think much and rushed down despite the worry that her ability might be exposed, and successfully saved Grace. Grace looked at Dong-hee with grateful eyes. The two of them excitedly flew around the city. After returning, both of their hair were messed up by the wind. Da-hae realized that this scene was exactly like Mrs. Monhom's dream. However, the two of them cried out of happiness. What Mrs. Monhom dreamed of was not entirely true. The three girls hugged each other happily. However, Dong-hee's ex-boyfriend saw everything. He opened his phone and recorded Dong-hee flying in the sky. Dong-hae brought money back to her mother and exclaimed that she almost fell. Da-hae told her everything that happened to Dong-hee. Da-hae affirmed that thanks to Mrs. Manhome's dream, they had time to prepare in advance, so everyone had more hope of saving Guiju. The whole family laughed and talked happily. On the other side, Ine was invited by Guiju to the amusement park. The father and daughter had a happy moment together. Guiju bought cotton candy for his daughter. He said that he would save Da-hae and make everyone happy, and the moment Ine was born was the best gift for him. So he advised Ine not to be insecure about herself. Ine's ability is a great ability. This solved the problem that had been in her heart for so long. The father and daughter hugged each other emotionally. At this time, Da-hae returned to the sauna to see her mother. At that moment, Mrs. Manhome also arrived. Mrs. Lee Hong gave Mrs. Manhome the winning lottery ticket and told her to let Guiju and Da-hae get married. Hearing this, Da-hae was extremely surprised. She realized that her mother was the mastermind behind the scam of Dong-hee's ex-boyfriend last time. Da-hae returned to the bathroom and asked Mrs. Lee Hong why she did that. Mrs. Lee Hong admitted that when she heard that Da-hae had died, she felt extremely regretful. Then she hugged Da-hae and tearfully shared that she did not expect the mother-daughter relationship to be so close and deep after all the years they had been together. She said that it was fortunate that Da-hae was still alive, so Mrs. Manhome's dream came true. Mrs. Lee Hong congratulated Da-hae on having a husband's family who truly loved her. Mrs. Lee Hong told Da-hae to live happily with Guiju. Da-hae was moved to hear those words. She did not expect her adoptive mother to truly care about her. That night, Guiju treated the family to the fish dish that Mr. Soon-gu had made. The whole family felt nostalgic. Guiju revealed that he had returned to the past and learned Mr. Soon-gu's cooking recipe. Everyone was happy because he knew how to use his ability. At school, Ine and her friends were busy practicing dancing to participate in an upcoming competition. Hiram was no longer in the dance group because she was shunned. However, Ine sincerely wished for Hiram to return. Mrs. Manhome continued to have nightmares about that fire. When she woke up in panic, Mr. Soon-gu brought her a glass of water and offered to play a song for her. Then Mrs. Manhome went out and saw her husband practicing dancing. He invited her to dance to the melodious music. Thanks to that, the two of them were no longer angry with each other. Guiju saw his parents happy from afar. His face involuntarily smiled. At this moment, he returned to the past when his parents were young. The two were dancing together. Everyone was colorless. Suddenly, a colorful little girl ran past. She was Da-hae when she was young. Guiju followed the girl for a while. He realized that she was being teased by her friends because she didn't know how to ride a bike. So Guiju stepped forward and held the bike for her. That moment made both of them happy. Little Da-hae was happy and didn't notice that someone was helping her behind. Suddenly, the surroundings became colorful. Guiju was surprised. This was the first time he had returned to the past so vividly. While helping little Da-hae, he accidentally got injured by a tree branch. When he returned home, Guiju discovered that because of the tree branch in the past, his neck had a scar. Knowing that his time was running out, Guiju held back his grief and went to eat with his family. The next day, when he went to the pharmacy to ask about his scar, the pharmacist guessed that he was allergic to plants and that it would heal quickly in half a day to a week, so his time left was at most a week. In class, Ine saw Hiram being bullied. Ine approached Hiram and suggested that she join the dance club in the upcoming competition. With her ability, Ine knew that Hiram was looking forward to this performance. Ine also wanted to make up with Hiram. Hiram refused but was very grateful. At the gym, Grace and Hung-tae arrived. Grace said that she wanted to introduce Hung-tae to Dong-hee. Although Dong-hee liked Hung-tae at first sight, she still said that she didn't want to get to know anyone at this time. This made Grace feel strange. Grace replied that Hung-tae came here to apply for the coach position, not to date. Grace's answer made Dong-hee extremely embarrassed. When she looked closely at Hung-tae's face, Dong-hee realized that he was a food delivery man. His delivery method made her very satisfied because he always kept the food intact, not broken or cold. That made her really like Hung-tae. Grace exclaimed that Dong-hee's taste in lovers was very unique. Dong-hee's ex-lover was also present at the gym not far away. When he found out the truth that he was deceived, he was extremely angry. That night, he went to see Dong-hee and begged her to come back to him, otherwise he would post the video of her flying online. Dong-hee said that those videos could be made with editing software. After saying that, Dong-hee left. He intended to chase after her, but at that moment, Hyung-tae came and scared him. Hyung-tae threw his phone into the pond and left, leaving him to search for it. Mrs. Manhome continued to dream about the fire, so she told Guiju that she saw a clock falling from the wall and there were people struggling in the air during the fire. So Guiju met co-worker to investigate it, but the co-worker said that he had not remembered anything about the fire for 10 years. Guiju asked co-worker to find the report on the fire, and he agreed. Recently, Da-hae noticed that Guiju was wearing a turtleneck, even though it was very hot. When he fell asleep, she lifted his shirt and realized that he had a scar on his neck. Da-hae knew that Guiju's time was running out. Suddenly, Guiju woke up and asked her to keep this a secret from everyone. He said that he got the scar when he went back in time. Before, he couldn't touch anything, but now it happened. So Da-hae realized that the fire 13 years ago could really cost him his life. The two hugged each other in despair. there. Mrs. Monhom told Dong-hee that she dreamed of her flying in front of everyone at In-ae's upcoming performance. However, Dong-hee didn't care about what she said. Dong-hee still decided to go there to cheer for In-ae. When the family arrived at In-ae's school, they unexpectedly met Mrs. Lee-hong's family, who also came to cheer for her. The two families walked into the auditorium together. On the other side, Guiju and Da-hae bought flowers for In-ae. Suddenly, Guiju received information that there was a report of a fire that day. He asked Da-hae to deliver the flowers to In-ae first. Then Guiju ran to his colleague and was shown a map of the school. Da-hae went in to give flowers to In-ae. In-ae was uneasy and worried when Guiju did not come. Dong-hee received a text message from her ex-lover. He sent a photo saying that he was with In-ae. Then he asked Dong-hee to go to the waiting room on the 4th floor. Because she was worried about In-ae, Dong-hee went up there, as he said. When Dong-hee arrived, he unexpectedly prepared roses and candles to confess to her. His purpose was to win her affection, which made Dong-hee feel extremely disgusted. Currently, In-ae was worried behind the set. When she saw Guiju coming, she felt relieved. However, Hyrim still hadn't appeared when the other group's performance was almost over. When the group was about to perform without Hyrim arrived at that moment. The group put aside their previous grudges and happily pulled Hyrim into the group. Then the group went on stage. Because In-ae was so nervous, she stood there. Seeing that the boyfriend came over and took off In-ae's glasses. The boyfriend knew that In-ae was nervous about appearing in front of so many people. He then encouraged In-ae, and thanks to the boyfriend's words, In-ae felt more confident. The group performed very well. On stage, In-ae thought to send Guiju that she had made good friends. Now In-ae was no longer seen as invisible, so she didn't want Guiju to worry about her anymore. After the group took a photo, In-ae realized that Hyrim had gone out to the stairs. She went over and talked to Hyrim. In-ae said that she really wanted to be friends with Hyrim. Why did Hyrim hate her so much? Hyrim blamed In-ae for not being sincere with her. Why did they both like the same person, but In-ae didn't tell her anything? Because of that, Hyrim felt that In-ae did not consider her a friend. Hearing this, In-ae told Hyrim that she had the superpower to read other people's thoughts. Hyrim replied that she also had the superpower, which was to attract other people's gazes. Da-hae looked at Guiju and suddenly realized that the clothes he was wearing were very familiar. Memories flooded back. She remembered that those were the clothes he wore the day he appeared in the past to inform her about In-ae's location in the gym, so she told Guiju that. Guiju immediately went out to return to the past. He told Da-hae that after he finished reporting In-ae's location, he would return immediately. Da-hae understood that because Guiju did not have much time left here, so he was in such a hurry. Then he returned to the past to inform Guiju that In-ae was in the stage warehouse. On the other side, Dong-hee's ex-lover was trying to hold on to her. When she refused, he brought out gasoline and threatened to burn everything down. At this time, there was a group performing somersaults in the air on the stage. Mrs. Monhom found this scene very familiar. She realized that her recent dreams were not scenes from the past. It was about to catch fire now, she informed her husband. So he went to press the fire alarm, aiming to evacuate everyone before the fire. On the way, Mr. Sungu passed by Da-hae and told her that there was going to be a fire. At this time, Da-hae started to get scared. She wondered why at this time. Da-hae searched for In-ae. Dong-hee looked at her ex-lover's reaction. She was completely calm because she knew he was a coward. Surely he wouldn't dare to light the fire. As she predicted, he only did that to threaten her. Dong-hee admitted that was what she liked about him, because he might be a bad guy, but not a cruel person. You're just a useless guy. Then she turned and walked away. She also told him to clean up the place. Hearing Dong-hee's words, he scolded her while cleaning. He accidentally put the gasoline-soaked cloth into the candlelight and caused a fire. He was scared and ran away. A while later, Guiju returned. Seeing the chaotic scene before his eyes, he hurriedly ran to find his relatives. Everyone in the audience was panicking as the fire was about to spread here. At that time, Dong-hee saw that the staff could not lower the fire curtain because it was caught in the light bulb. She thought for a moment and flew up there to lower the curtain and successfully helped everyone escape the danger. At that time, everyone was so busy running outside that they did not pay attention to her, so her ability was not discovered. In-ae and Hyrim were trapped in the fire because the roller shutter was locked. Hyrim felt afraid that she would be trapped here. In-ae ran to find another way. A while later, Guiju ran to break the roller shutter. Hyrim pointed him in the direction of In-ae. He hurriedly chased in the direction Hyrim pointed to save In-ae. At this time, In-ae was about to suffocate from the smoke. Suddenly, she heard Da-hae calling her. The two met again. Suddenly, the wall containing the clock was about to collapse. Luckily, Guiju arrived in time and caught it. He realized that this was the dream his mother told him. He told Da-hae to quickly take In-ae away from here. After saving the two people, he would return to the past as soon as Da-hae and In got out of there. The wall collapsed. Guiju suddenly returned to the moment In-ae was born. Guiju cried with emotion. He finally returned to this moment. He silently thanked his ex-wife. Then he ran really fast to Da-hae's school. Now everything had become colorful. He could touch everything. At the same time, everyone saw Guiju. When he arrived, he saw his senior. When Guiju called the senior name, this time he turned his head in response. However, he still went into the fire to save people. Very quickly after that, the entrance suddenly collapsed, and just like that, the senior died in the fire. Although Guiju was sad, he knew that he still had to stay rational. He quickly got the the fire extinguisher. Because he had read about the school's map earlier, he was able to run quickly to the gym's warehouse to save Dahae. When he got there, he saw her faint from smoke inhalation. He gave her oxygen and carried her out, but the way out was extremely difficult. The two of them struggled to reach the window. Below, people had set up a cushion for people jumping from the upper floors. Guiju gave Dahae the family heirloom ring and told her to keep it safe. Then he pushed her down onto the cushion and told Dahae that this was just the beginning. They would meet again. As Dahae fell out, the fire broke out and killed Guiju. Back to the present, Donghee's ex-lover was imprisoned for causing a fire. Luckily, no one was injured in the fire. The family held a funeral for Guiju. A few years later, everyone has a new life. Hung Tae and Grace invited Donghee to use her flying ability to help them fly a few laps in the air. Mrs. Manhome is now a regular at Mrs. Lee Hong's sauna. She sleeps very well there and often shares her dreams with Mrs. Lee Hong. Since then, Mrs. Lee Hong has avoided many troubles. Today, Mrs. Manhome dreamed that a distinguished guest appeared in her house. Dahae is no longer afraid of fire like before. She has a son with Guiju, a very active boy. The family doesn't know what his ability is. While Dahae was packing her clothes, her son suddenly came and gave her the toy ball that they lost yesterday. Dahae wondered where her son got the ball from. The boy honestly said that he took it yesterday. Dahae guessed that the boy had the ability to get lost things back, so Dahae asked the boy to find Guiju. The boy sat for a while, and sure enough, Guiju returned to their family. Guiju stood there holding his son's hand, and Dahae emotionally congratulated Guiju on his return. Today's movie ends here. Thank you everyone for watching. Goodbye, and see you again in the next videos.